Welcome to Veronica Live, and we've got a big show today. I'm here with my wingman, Statesman John, has joined me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Veronica. How are you doing on this fine... Well, it's turning out to be a sunny morning after it rained all day yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, Florida is gloomy. I've decided that I don't live in the sunshine state anymore. I live in the gloom state because this has been a rough winter. Oh, my goodness. And now it's cold again. And I was telling you offline, I went to take a shower, and there was only cold weather, and I decided I was not taking a survivor shower this morning.
I thought isn't the polar plunge, isn't that like an in thing to do, you know?
No, thank you.
Like for health?
No, I've done enough survivor showers in the military. I don't need to do them now in my older, wiser years. But we have a big show. I just want to tease our lineup because we are going to be having one of our guests call in here shortly. And we are going to be joined by our Florida State Attorney Larry Basford for Judicial District 14. Is it Judicial Circuit, I think is what we say. And he's going to be joining us. He's running again, and we recently had his opponent on, and he's got a lot to say because they've been actually, if you go and follow their website, they've been sending people to jail, John, and we like that. Yeah. That. So, oh my gosh, the rest of the country longs for that. And then at our next guest after that will be Virginia Congressional candidate Cameron Hamiliton, and he has got a big race that he's running in Virginia, and he lives over kind of near Quantico Air Force Base is the zone. So we'll have tell us where he, his district is, but he's been endorsed by so many big boys. I don't know if you saw that on his website. Wow. And yep. It's a heavy race.
Navy SEAL. He's former Navy SEAL, so
I know, total stud. So
I
was texting him last night, and I go, I think you might be my first Navy SEAL. I hope I survive. So he thought that was pretty funny, but very.
No, Hung Cow is,
Well, he's not a Navy SEAL. Maybe played with the Navy SEALs, but no, we have an actual Navy SEAL. I hope I survive this, John. Oh my goodness.
And don't forget, Mark Anderson's a Navy SEAL also.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Oh, poor Mark. I totally forgot about our supervisor of elections. Maybe because this guy is younger and he seems to show his biceps in his his pictures, and he has a lovely, lovely family. And I don't know. I was watching all the sound bites on him, and he's been on Fox News a ton. So he's quite the stud, and he's a conservative, constitutional person that wants to take America to the next level. And I think the border's his number one issue, John.
Well, it's going to be an interesting discussion with him, particularly, taking out Abigail Spanberg.
Well, she's not running again. So she's not running again, but there's a ton of people that are running on both sides. It's very heavy, but he's got a lot of money, and he's got all of the big boy and girl endorsements, I would say. So when we come back, we're going to be joined by our state attorney, Larry Basford, and we're going to see what's happening here in our judicial circuit and how he's putting all the bad guys in jail. So we'll be right back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with our first guest of the morning, and he has been on the show before. We are so pleased to welcome back State Attorney Larry Basford, and he is covers the 14th Judicial Circuit, and he's running for office. So welcome back, Larry.
Good morning. Nice day here in Lynn Haven, although it is raining a little bit.
I know. I was joking with John that we live in not the Sunshine State this year. It's the gloom state of Florida. I want more sun. You are a busy man, and you are working hard every day to fight the bad guys, and we want people to get to know who you are. So Larry, as our state attorney, tell us your background and how you got into law.
Well, let's see. To start off with, I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I was born in Marianna. That's up in Jackson County. Graduated from Marianna High School. Went up to play a little baseball in junior college in Alabama. Then I transferred to FSU, where I graduated with honors with the degrees in criminology and law. I financed my college education by a series of jobs in construction in Alabama and Florida, and then actually pipeline construction over in the Middle East in Iran.
Oh, wow.
And then before I went to law school, I worked on a gas and oil rig out in Louisiana. I actually started my legal career in St. Augustine as a prosecutor over there. But when Jim Appleman, who was the state attorney at the time, offered me an opportunity to come back home, I took advantage of that. And it's been an honor and privilege to prosecute here in the 14th Circuit since that time. For most of my legal career, I have been a prosecutor, but I was in private practice for a few years before, in a civil law practice that involves commercial litigation, landlord and tenant, homeowners associations, wills, contract disputes, things of that nature. And I was fortunate enough to work my way up through the state attorney's office, starting as a misdemeanor prosecutor, then became a felony prosecutor, eventually promoted to county chief up in Jackson County, and then chief assistant state attorney before I was blessed to be elected as your state attorney in 2020. Through the years, I've been active in my church. That's First United Methodist Church here in Panama City, where I teach Sunday school and attend Mike Lewis Sunday School class. Been president of the Bay County Bar Association. As you know, that's a professional association of local lawyers, and chairman of the 14th Circuit Grievance Committee.
Well,
So, I mean, I could go on, but you tell me, you ask some questions, and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Well, you're a busy guy. I think one of the questions that John and we talk about all the time is, we're so worried about the border and illegals. So how does that impact the 14th Judicial Circuit? Do we get a lot of illegals arrested for crime activities, and then what happens to them?
Yes, it impacts our court system, our criminal justice system, just like it does all across the nation. We have to bring in, I'll give you a couple of examples. We have to bring in interpreters for people with many different languages and sometimes dialects of those languages. And that can slow down a proceeding because you have to have a certified court interpreter when these individuals come to court for their first appearance, arraignments, well, not so much for first appearances, but arraignments, pretrial conferences, meetings with their lawyers, and then if the case ultimately proceeds to trial. So that's an extra expense and burden and slows things down. We also have a number of people who have not respected their laws in their home country, do not respect our laws, the basic law about immigration, and certainly do not have much respect for our laws that the rest of our citizens apply. In addition to bringing in illegal drugs, we've heard about that, and the overdoses caused by fentanyl. So yes, it is a great impact throughout the country and on our 14th judicial courts.
Larry, one of the things that's been in the news is all these. I have a house up here, west of Atlanta, and as well as in Panama City, and one of the things up here, was the murder recently of a college young lady at college by an illegal immigrant, and not, well, I want to call him it is illegal alien. I want to use the correct legal term, okay?
Sure.
And is that much of a problem in the 14th Circuit area? I mean, with a lot of illegals in there, and what is the crime rate that you're seeing associated with these people?
Well, we've certainly seen an increase in crimes caused by people from other countries. And as you're talking about illegal aliens, we've been fortunate that we have not had anyone murdered here in the 14th Circuit by an illegal alien. However, we see other types of crimes that affect our community: sexual battery, lewd and lascivious acts upon children, thefts, selling of drugs, things of that nature. So yes, there's a broad range of crimes that we are having to prosecute caused by illegal aliens.
Are you seeing any increase? A couple of stories this week were on the squatters, where they're I guess they're being told, these non-government organizations that are aiding all these people coming across the border, apparently publishing instructions on how how to squat in a vacant house and how to not get evicted. Is that a problem in Florida, like they see in California, where it takes months to years to get people, illegal squatters, out of a house? I mean, is Florida law very different from, say, California or New York, where that's happening?
Yes, it is very different. And I'm not aware of any cases where we are having that problem with illegal aliens being squatters. We have prosecuted cases where citizens have just moved into vacant houses or apartments or condos and refused to get out when the owner discovered that they were there. And we've prosecuted those people.
That's great. So, Larry, you just kicked off your campaign, and you're going around the county. So I saw on your Facebook page, Larry Basford for State Attorney, you've got a great turnout. What are voters telling you when they meet with you at these events?
Well, I get a wide range of feedback from the voters, and that's one good thing about campaigning. It gives you a chance to get out there and meet so many good citizens, people that I've helped in the past by prosecuting people who have committed violent crimes against them. They're telling me that they want an attorney, a state attorney with experience, someone who knows what they're doing and how to get the job done in an effective manner. That seems to be most of the feedback that I'm getting.
Oh, that's excellent. And I was looking at your work page, sa14.fl.gov, so stateattorney14.fl.gov, and I was seeing all you're definitely sending people to jail. So are there more? Is there a crime that we are seeing more often? Is it the drugs? Because you had, some drug offenses, you had child porn on there, somebody that had murdered somebody. What are we seeing in crime? Because I feel like child pornography is always at the top of the list, and drug offenses definitely as well in these times that we live in.
Well, if you're looking for a common factor related to most of the crimes that we prosecute, you would definitely say drugs, the use or abuse of illegal drugs and or alcohol. That seems to run through most of the cases, whether that be a homicide case, drug trafficking, obviously, thefts, breaking into someone's home to get property to sell so they can further their drug use. Drugs are one of the major causes of crime, and we prosecute those as fast as we can and try to get some serious punishment for those individuals involved in trafficking in drugs. On the other hand, we know that everyone who commits a crime is not dangerous. Some people have mental health problems. Some people have drug abuse problems. And if we're talking about just someone possessing or using, then we want to try to get those people the help that they need so they can take care of their habit, get it under control, and then be productive members of our society. That's the reason we have I've helped promote and establish some of our diversion courts that you're familiar with.
Yeah,
Veterans Court, which has a tremendous success. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you because I saw in the news story that this is like an offshoot of what you're doing when it comes to mental illness and veterans. So talk about that in depth with us.
Yes. Veterans Court was first established by our circuit judge at the time, chief circuit judge at the time, Elijah Smiley, and with the help of Senator George Gaynor, got the funding for that place. And essentially, it is a program that helps veterans who are not charged with violent crimes or involved in drug trafficking to try to get their lives back on track while holding them accountable for their actions. It involves a process. They have to be screened. They have to be honorably discharged from the military. And then they have to want this treatment, because this treatment, these mental health courts and drug courts take a number of months to complete the training process. And Veterans Court for misdemeanors can last up to 12 months. For felonies, it can last 18 to 24 months. And it basically helps them get in contact with the resources and the people they need. Sometimes they need to find housing. Sometimes they need mental health counseling. Sometimes they need substance abuse counseling. And there's a number of these agencies that are out there specifically for veterans to help them get their lives back on track. But sometimes the veterans are unaware of them. And that's why our Veterans Court and the people associated with that, that's their job, to help them connect with the resources available to them. And I'm glad to say that we have a veteran, an individual, one of our prosecutors who retired from the military, and he now is running our Veterans Court for us. So
that's
we're very
so nice.
proud and very fortunate to have him.
And that was one of my questions. How big is the 14th Judicial Circuit, and how many judges do we have and lawyers that are working and prosecuting all of these, the bad guys?
Well, although our circuit is the fourth largest circuit in the state of Florida, and it covers somewhere around 3,800 square miles, we have 13 circuit judges. I believe we have 9 county court judges. And if you're talking about law enforcement, we have 24 state and local law enforcement agencies that employ around 931 law enforcement officers. Now, when they make arrests or they're investigating cases, they submit those to us. And we have 28 prosecutors. I supervise those, as well as a support staff of around 98 people. And our mission is pretty simple, if you want me to just break it down in the simplest form, and that is to keep our community safe by making the criminal justice system work for everyone. And that means protecting the innocent while convicting the guilty. And when I say work for everyone, that obviously includes making sure that victims, witnesses, and defendants are treated with respect and are protected equally under the law.
Outstanding. Well, I've watched enough Law and Order that's what I dream about, State Attorney Larry Basford. So when we had your competitor that's running against you, he seemed to think, and you are actually, I mean, you're the boss, so you know that it takes a while when people are arrested and to get them to trial. And he kept using the word intake, and so John and I aren't lawyers. So tell us, like, what happens when somebody actually is arrested, and where do they go, and when do they finally get to get their case heard? Is it, I guess, different if it's a DUI or child porn or a murder? It probably could take longer, I would assume, because you've got to gather evidence. And so what goes into a case and getting it to trial?
Okay. A couple of things. Yes, it does. Each case is different, and certainly the misdemeanor cases that you've referred to, battery, DUIs, those do not take as long as the more serious crimes like murder, molestation of a child, drug trafficking cases sometimes. When law enforcement goes out and makes an arrest, they write their reports. They are booked into the county jail. At that time, there's an intake procedure done at the county jail where people have to answer certain questions. If they have mental health problems, if they have, for instance, we were talking just about veterans, whether or not they are a veteran. This is done at the jails. Then they make first appearance within 24 hours. At first appearance, a judge determines whether or not there is probable cause to believe that this person committed this crime. If so, then the judge either sets a monetary bail or the person is released on a conditional release. For instance, if a local person commits a crime that is nonviolent, then there's a very good chance that person may be released on a conditional release that would require him to keep the court informed of his or her residence and then come to court as directed. However, if that is a dangerous crime or if the person has no ties to the community, then the judge is going to set a monetary bond. And that is going to depend on the severity of the case, of individual's background, things of that nature. Once an arrest is made, then law enforcement, within probably the first week or so, depending on the severity of the case and how complex it is, will submit reports to our office. Once we get those reports in, we review those reports, and the other information available to you. And then we have to make a charging decision if the person is in custody within 30 days. If we do not make that charging decision within 30 days, then the individual that has been arrested is entitled to have a hearing to determine why the charges have not been made. And if there's not a justification for that, they are released from jail. Once we make a charging decision, and that has to be based on probable cause, and we go a little bit further than that. Not only do we want probable cause to believe that the individual committed this crime, we want to see enough of information or receive enough of testimony to lead us to believe that will we have enough admissible evidence to prove this case at trial? If so, then we file a charging document known as an information, and that starts the prosecution of a case.
Very interesting.
Do you want me to continue?
Well, Larry, I
wanted
to ask you, with spring break, that's going on right now in particular. Is that same process used for that? I mean, I know we get a lot of out of town people, and they get arrested, for public drunkenness or
alcohol
underage.
on the beach.
Yeah, those type things.
Right.
How is that is that handled differently?
Most of those cases are handled the same way. Sometimes officers are giving summons for people to come to court, when that can be done in the regular course of things also. But a lot of those people that we have down here in spring break committing minor offenses, we used to have a spring break court where we had the judges and the prosecutors and the public defenders go out and actually hold court on the beach. We've gotten away from that. As you know, spring break is not as big and notorious and out of control as it once was here in Bay County and other parts of Florida. At least here in Bay County, we have it under control, and in Gulf County also, as well as the rest of the 14th Judicial Circuit. But a lot of those cases, those are expedited for those, what we would call possession of alcohol on the beach or possession of alcohol by a minor. Those are second-degree misdemeanors, some of the lowest types of crimes that can be committed here in Florida. And we try to move those into a diversion court, either misdemeanor pretrial intervention or our misdemeanor diversion program, so they do not clog up our system. And that's been very effective.
Oh, excellent. And how many criminals do we see in the 14th Judicial Circuit, every year? Is there a number that, that you're kind of dealing with, because you have to make sure you have enough staff and can process everything?
Yes. Well, for the past several years, our felony intake, the number of felony defendants and cases that come in, range around 6,000, 6,100, 6,200. Now that is for the entire circuit for all 6 counties.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Now that's just felonies. The misdemeanors may run to 10 to 12,000.
Oh my
so
goodness.
The numbers can be pretty staggering.
Yeah, and what's the difference between because I know misdemeanors, something small, is that shoplifting, and what and felony? What are some examples of between the two?
Yeah, misdemeanors include things like shoplifting, petty theft, battery, domestic battery, trespass, things of that nature. Those are misdemeanor crimes, and a second-degree misdemeanor is punishable by up to 60 days in jail. A first-degree misdemeanor is punishable by up to a year in jail. However, if a person commits a felony, for instance, grand theft, burglary of a dwelling, sexual battery, homicides, DUI manslaughters, those are classified as felonies, and that means they could go to prison for more than a year. And that, again, depends on the severity of the offense. Third-degree felonies, 5 years. Second-degree felonies, up to 15 years. First-degree felonies, 30 years. And then you have first-degree felonies punishable by life. You have life felonies, as well as capital felonies, which are first-degree murder. And now, since the legislature enacted this law last year, sexual battery on a child less than 12 years of age.
Good.
That's also now a possible capital felony.
Excellent.
Yeah, Larry, I wanted to ask you about some of the drug use characteristics. What Florida basically legalized marijuana to medical marijuana, and we've had guests on before, psychologists, psychiatrists, people that have studied the psychosis, the increase in psychosis associated with marijuana use, and particularly the liberalization of where it's legalized. Are we seeing any of those characteristics in the drug arrests that are being made, where we're seeing particularly teenage psychosis being increased and making things worse?
Well, I was just speaking with my juvenile prosecutor, Callie Overstreet, this week down here in Bay County as to the types of cases that are most frequently seen in juvenile court. And unfortunately, that is what you've just been discussing, John, is the use of marijuana in vape pens and things of that nature. We've certainly seen an increase in that. I know from experience when I prosecuted people for first-degree murder before and had an opportunity to sit and talk with individuals after the case or their cases were over with. I recall specifically one individual where me and one of my investigators was talking to this female who had committed first-degree murder. How did it get started? Because she had a twin sister who was a very successful nurse. And she said, well, it all started with smoking marijuana, and then I started stealing prescription medication from my mom and dad's medicine cabinet. That led to other drugs and experimenting with other drugs like cocaine and then crack cocaine. And at the time, this is before fentanyl came into play. So there's a dispute. I understand that some people say marijuana is harmless and it doesn't lead to other things. And in many situations, it does not. But in some situations, it is a gateway drug to other things.
Yeah, well, that's what John and I say all the time. I wanted to ask you about your relationships with Sheriff Ford and Chief Talamontez, and then what about like the FBI and DOJ? I assume you deal with all these, local guys, and then some of these bigger organizations. So tell us about your relationships, because that's probably part of being a successful state attorney, I would assume.
Yes, it is. I have a very good working relationship with all of our 6 sheriffs in our county and the other police chiefs and people in charge of law enforcement agencies. As I indicated, we have 24 different state and local law enforcement agencies here that we work with on a weekly basis. And that's important because it takes a team effort in having a successful prosecution. It all starts with the community. Somebody seeing someone break into a friend's house or drug activity at their neighbor's house. That gets reported to law enforcement sometimes. Then law enforcement investigates those cases, and we rely on our law enforcement officers to make thorough investigations, which they do. I think we can all agree that we owe a deep debt of gratitude to our law enforcement officers in this community, not only for what they do and putting their lives on the line each day to catch dangerous criminals, but also how they protected and served us in our time of need after Hurricane Michael and this most recent tornado that we had.
Right.
But we rely on them. We have to have good working relationships with law enforcement in order to have a free exchange of information. And what that means is sometimes most of the time, we agree with what law enforcement have done in a case. Sometimes we have to tell them, look, we need some more investigation done on this case before we go forward. And sometimes even after that investigation has been complete, there is still not enough of admissible evidence to prove that this individual committed this crime. When that happens, we have to have a good relationship with law enforcement, and they respect us enough to know that when we tell them we can't go forward with this prosecution, they still respect us and continue to work closely with us on their other cases.
That's great.
Larry, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, the state attorney's position is it's an elected position, so it's political, obviously. And we've had a new term introduced into the lexicon recently called lawfare. And I don't want to get into individual, who is what, but I want to talk more about the concept of particularly where you have state attorneys that are target somebody, and then what looks to me almost like judges that are complicit in these prosecutions, and it's like I keep, to me it's like people are losing respect for the law when they see what's going on in some of the states like New York and up here in Atlanta, with Fani Willis and stuff. Are there safeguards in Florida that prevent this kind of thing from happening? I mean, to me, I'm waiting for the adults to come into the room and say, hey, this is not the way our judicial system works. We do not target people and prosecute them and find a crime to fit them. I mean, I thought that was part of the Constitution, but apparently it's not. So I'm just curious, what are your views as a state attorney and an elected official on what's going on, and what safeguards are in place in Florida?
Sure. Let me start off with what you first brought up there about judges, and then we'll get into the rest of this. We have had some very good judges appointed recently, and I say recently within the last 8 to 10 years, and we had some appointed even before that. But Governor Scott and Governor DeSantis has served us very well with the appointment of the judges here in the 14th Judicial Circuit and their predecessors. We have 13 circuit judges and as I said, 9 county judges that are excellent. And I agree with you, John, that now, perhaps more than ever, and we hear this term over and over again, many people are concerned about what's going on in our country. And it is essential to our system of justice that our citizens have faith in our criminal justice system, faith that their state attorney will always do what is right, that everyone will be treated fairly and protected equally under the law. And that means prosecuting guilty people, okay? But it also means protecting innocents. You asked, what are the safeguards in place? Well, obviously, the police officers have a tremendous amount of discretion when they go out and make cases, and we rely on them to use their discretion. And then when those cases get brought to court, we have to rely on the state attorney that he or she will always make the right decisions, keeping in mind our mission is to keep our community safe and make the justice system work for everyone, victims, witnesses, and defendants. And then we have judges, and I would venture to say that we have some of the finest judges in the state of Florida, perhaps in the nation. When you look at the youth and the experience that we have locally, as well as on appellate courts here in Florida, there are safeguards built in the system all along. But basically, when we're talking about criminal prosecutions, I can't control what goes on in these other cities. I can control what goes on in my office and what happens in the 14th Judicial Circuit. Throughout my career, the people have trusted me, and it has certainly been a privilege to be a prosecutor. And as long as I'm in this office, we will continue to always do the right thing.
Outstanding. And what is your relationship with Ashley Moody, our Florida Attorney General? So, do you all come together and, once a year? And does she push out some of the agenda from the governor? How does that work, Larry?
Yes, ma'am. We work together with Ms. Moody's office when we're considering proposed legislation. When I say we, not just me, but the Florida Prosecuting Attorneys Association, that consists of 19 of our elected state attorneys throughout the state of Florida. So we work with her on that basis. If there's an individual or, for instance, when we're prosecuting cases and it includes multiple jurisdictions, then we have the option of asking the statewide prosecutor to come in and assist us with those cases. That doesn't happen that often, but they are currently assisting us with a string of cases where these gangs, you've heard about gangs, but this is a theft gang that is growing across the state and perhaps the nation of going in and stealing, robbing, if you will, Walmart stores, a string of Walmart stores. And that goes not only just in our jurisdiction, but in other jurisdictions. In those situations, she has allowed her statewide prosecutor to assist us. So we do work closely with her, and she also is a friend of law enforcement.
Excellent. Well, I love that. And then I wanted to ask you, is human trafficking a real big problem in the Panhandle?
Veronica, human trafficking is a problem everywhere, not just in these foreign countries, but also in the United States, as well as in the 14th Judicial Circuit. We currently are prosecuting human trafficking cases. I don't want to get into the details of that, but human trafficking affects a number of people. It is a $1 billion industry. Some people say it rivals the amount of money that is used in the illicit drug trade, or as well as the sale of illegal weapons on the open market, not just here in the United States, but in other countries. And when we're talking about human trafficking, we're not just talking about labor and sex trafficking, although that can sometimes be together, where you have the human trafficking and forcing someone to work or be in servitude, as well as someone who is being forced to engage in sexual acts for commercial purposes. So yes, it is a problem, and we just recently concluded a case, I say recently, last year, when we convicted Michael Harrison Hunt for attempting to kill one of his victims in human trafficking. He actually killed a young lady. He and his associate killed a young lady that looked like her. That was a mistaken identity, and attempted to kill 3 other individuals that were in her home. We successfully prosecuted him not for human trafficking, but for murder and 3 counts of attempted murder, as well as burglary. And today he sits on death row.
Outstanding. Well, one of the things that always comes up with every politician, political person that we talk to is we want to know their support for the Second Amendment and where they stand with red flag laws. Because, and Florida is just such a wonderful state to be, a gun Second Amendment person. So where do you stand, Larry?
Well, I agree. I think Florida is a wonderful state. This is the best place to live and work and raise a family. This part of the state is, as far as the Second Amendment, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in all of our amendments, and I am a lifetime member of the National Rifle Association. You asked me a question about the red flag laws, and I know some people have some very strong feelings about that.
They do.
That is a civil procedure. That is implemented by the sheriff's office, and it has to have the approval of a court. And that procedure has been used very, very sparingly in the 14th Judicial Circuit. And basically what it involves is a process where law enforcement has to come in and establish that a person is dangerous. They represent a danger to themselves or particularly others. And because of one reason or another, a lot of times it's mental health reasons, they are a danger to be in possession of firearms at that time. If so, then the court makes a determination, and those guns or those weapons may be seized. But that procedure is used very, very sparingly in the 14th Judicial Circuit.
I like that, to hear that. So I guess why, you could be having a big, law office and you are working for the people, which, why do you choose to be our state attorney when you could have your own firm and, all the lawyers I know, they're on every billboard and making zillions of dollars. So why do you choose to be our state attorney? Why is it important to you, this position?
I suppose it comes down to this. I care. I care about our community. I want to keep our community safe, and I want the criminal justice system to work the way it should work. I've led by example while I've been in office. Let me just give you. Have you got time? Can I give you a little analogy here?
Oh, please.
When the people elected me as their state attorney, I had been a chief assistant. I had been over major crimes. I had worked my way up from the bottom. And experience and results matter. When you're sick and a doctor tells you need a surgeon, you want a surgeon. We want a surgeon who has performed that operation many times. When we get ready to travel out of the airport here on a jet, we want a pilot who has hundreds of hours in that seat. Or when we build or rebuild our homes after a disaster, we want a contractor who is licensed and who has experience. When we elect a state attorney to be the chief prosecutor and manage a law office, of the largest law office in the circuit, we want someone with experience. I am the prosecutor who's been a person who's tried over 250 cases, anything from misdemeanors all the way up to first-degree murder cases seeking the death penalty on individuals. And according to a report issued by the governor last year to grade state attorneys, our office ranked number one in sending dangerous people to prison. We're also number one when it comes to efficiency for the fiscal year 2022 through 23. We haven't got the latest reports yet, but that means that we've had the highest clearance rate in Florida. Essentially, that means we are disposing of more cases than are being brought into our cases, working down that backlog. And we did this by putting together a team of hardworking, dedicated prosecutors and support staff, and then working with our law enforcement partners like we talked about. Why do I want to do this? This is a community where I raised my children. This is where my children have returned to raise my grandchildren. I want to keep our community safe and make it safe not only for my family, but safe when we send our children and grandchildren to school, safe when we go to work, safe when we go to worship, and certainly safe when we go to sleep in our beds at night. And to do this, we have to be passionate about this. We have to maintain our relationships with law enforcement and make sure that the state attorney's office is a friend of law enforcement and a friend of the community. That's why I'm running, to keep this community safe for everyone and also make sure everyone's rights are protected.
I love it. Because John and I talk all the time. Living in Florida, we do feel safe with you there in the office and with Sheriff Ford. Criminals don't rule here in Bay County or the Panhandle, so it's wonderful. Do you have any challenges, Larry? That I wish y'all made more money, because I know how hard. I'm just astonished by the numbers. I mean, because you said
Brian, I was going to ask Larry. One thing I really admire about you, Larry. You mentioned you were a pipeliner and you worked on the oil platform. You are not a stranger to hard work. I know people that do that work for a living, and it is tough. And is that colored your experience over the years, or help you form how you deal with people?
Absolutely, John. I mean, I've worked in agriculture jobs. I started working when I was about 12 years old, making $3 a day, working in tobacco, and then that progressed to watermelons, and then in the hay fields. So yes, and then in the oil fields. Working in the oil field is some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life, physically demanding and dangerous too. But I think we're all familiar with Lee Corso, famous coach, and he's always on ESPN. Well, not always. He's getting a little older. But he said coaching is not a job, it's a privilege. And that's the way I feel about prosecutors and prosecuting cases. It's not a job. It is a privilege. Every day when prosecutors go to work, we have a difference to make our part of the world just a little bit better and a little bit safer. We have an opportunity to help people with their problems. That could be victims. That could be sometimes people that just make bad decisions. But we have a difference to make people's lives better and to keep our community safe. And it is a very rewarding job, maybe not financially. Mm-hmm. And we do lose people to Morgan & Morgan. Excuse me. You had talked, Veronica, about some of the challenges.
Yes, I was going to continue with that question, too.
The biggest challenge, obviously, is continuing to maintain the public's trust in our criminal justice system. The other challenges that we face, and these aren't necessarily in any order, are the recruitment and the retention of good people like me who care about making our community safe and making the system work. We do get rated by personal injury attorneys, because once we get attorneys that have been there a couple of years and get some trial experience, then they're ready sometimes, and they have to go out for financial reasons to make more money. So that's always a problem. Then also, it's a continuing challenge to mentor and train our younger prosecutors. We have some very bright and passionate prosecutors, but we have to mentor them to make sure that they use their training and education always in an effort to seek justice. We have to continue to build our relationships with law enforcement and community partners like the Children's Advocacy Center, be transparent with the decisions that we make. And sometimes that is very difficult when the public wants to know what's going on about a case. And it's often not proper for us to comment on pending cases. And the public sometimes doesn't understand that. But we have tried our best to be as open and transparent as we can. And then another challenge that unfortunately keeps coming up is construction fraud. The last hurricane we had so many people that we were able to help, but unfortunately there was a lot that we were not able to help. And we had the construction fraud task force with law enforcement, and that was just an enormous success from what the Department of Business and Professional Regulations has told us. And we were able to help a lot of people get restitution, but unfortunately sometimes we weren't able to help individuals, and that continues to be a challenge. Even to this day, we're prosecuting some of those cases from hurricane and then some after the hurricane, and that was not in a state of emergency. People need to deal with licensed, reputable contractors, and oftentimes that means getting someone local that has a good reputation locally, even if you have to wait.
Well, what are we missing, Larry?
Some of the challenges.
What are we missing? I know people can find you. We've got to send people to your Facebook page, Larry Basford for State Attorney, so that they can see what you've been up to.
Yes, I should have my website up. I believe next week we're going to try to get that up. Okay. Some of the successes that we've had that we really haven't had a chance to talk about this morning. We defeated the efforts to consolidate our circuit with one of those mega circuits. The successes of our diversion courts, we touched on that. Our critical incident review team, that's a team that we've put together in my administration of our most experienced prosecutors to review cases when officers use deadly force, as well as first-degree murder cases and other complex cases. The resentencing of some people that had previously been convicted and sentenced to death row. And as a result of the Hearst decision, we've had to go through the resentencing, to seek the death penalty and put those back on death row. We've been successful with Kaler, Orm, and Craven. Those people have been returned to death row. Well, they've stayed on death row. And then these fentanyl overdoses. We and other state attorneys across the state within the last couple of years have started prosecuting these fentanyl overdoses, prosecuting the dealers who have sold the drugs, given the drugs to individuals who then overdosed. We've been prosecuting those, and hopefully to deter people from even engaging in that. But we'll see if we're going to be successful in deterring individuals once they learn that they can be prosecuted for selling drugs that causes someone to overdose and die. Those are some of the successes that we've had.
Love it.
I don't know how much more time we've got.
No, we have plenty of time, but I wanted to ask you too, because on your Facebook page, you are blessed with the 3 cutest grandchildren on the planet. And so I know that must be part of why you fight so hard. So tell me about your grandfather role and how you're fighting for them.
Well, as I said, I want my grandchildren to be able to feel safe when they walk down the street to get on the bus to go to a public school, just like my children were. I want them to be safe at school. My grandchildren, I am just blessed that my children chose, after they finished college and started their careers in other parts of the state and country, as when we're talking about my daughter, but when they got ready to start their family, they wanted to come home to a safe environment and be close to relatives. And that's one of the reasons that drives me to do this job. I care about what happens not only to my children, but to other people's children and grandchildren. My granddaughter is 7. My grandson is 5, and my youngest granddaughter just is 15 months old. I get an opportunity, since I'm so blessed that they have moved back home, I get to see them. In fact, I spent the day with 2 of them yesterday. I get to help coach my grandson in baseball. Well, it's wee ball. I get to help him, and as I help his father. And, it's just great to live in a community that has so many good recreational opportunities available to our young people. And this is where I grew up. This is where my children were raised. This is where my grandchildren will be raised. I hope my great-grandchildren will. And I want everyone's grandchildren and children and family to feel safe in our community.
And when is your election? When's the primary?
Well, our primary, if there are no non-party affiliations or Democratic candidates for state attorney, will be decided on August the 20th. Obviously, there will be early voting, but that will be the day, I believe, August the 20th is when this primary will be decided.
Well,
now, one reminder on that: if there's just 2 Republicans, the primary is the election. So
that's correct.
That's why I make sure people understand that it's important to vote in the primary. If there's just 2 people there.
Perfect.
That's true.
Well, Larry, what are we missing? It's been wonderful. I'm glad you're at the helm there. Would love to have you back, and we always love having you on Veronica Live.
Well, I guess you could say the bottom line is our community needs a state attorney with experience, someone who can lead and who knows what to do and how to do it. I'm the career prosecutor who has the actual experience, and with your support, with the community's support, I'll use that experience to continue to lead by example and to keep our community safe. I appreciate the opportunity to serve our community. This is not an entitlement. This, as Lee Corso said, this is a privilege. And I recognize this, and I take my position and responsibility very seriously.
Well,
I
wonderful.
certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning.
Yeah, it's been outstanding, and we've been talking with State Attorney Larry Basford, and we'll stay abreast of your election, sir, and all the good stuff you're doing in the office. We'll be right back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with our next guest, and I'm always so excited to have veterans on, and he's doing big things in the state of Virginia, and I love Virginia. I went to college in Virginia. Virginia is, still in part of my heart. They say Virginia is for lovers, but he's running for the 7th district seat, and so pleased to welcome former Navy SEAL and Republican congressional candidate Cameron Hamiliton to Veronica Live. Welcome, Cameron.
Hey, Veronica. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I want people to know your background and Navy SEAL. I mean, I want to go to war with you. So tell me about your background, Cameron.
Well, I would say I wouldn't want to go to war against me. That's for sure.
Oh, I like that. That's great.
My name is Cameron. I'm a former Navy SEAL. I served in the SEAL teams for 10 years. I grew up and joined the Navy fresh out of high school. And we were, old school kind of Reagan Republicans, more of a live and let live, but we were always conservative. And look, this country, though, has given me so much to be grateful for. And I thought it was my obligation and my great honor to give back to it. So I joined the military fresh out of high school, and I wanted to serve. I originally became a hospital corpsman in the Navy because the theory was, look, the SEAL teams has a pretty high attrition rate. And so you have to have, plans and actions. And I always wanted to be a medical provider. I believed in being both a warrior and a healer. So I became a hospital corpsman, and then I joined the SEAL teams. I graduated BUDS Class 261, became a special operator, so I lost my corpsman designation, but I was still a medic in the SEAL teams. It's kind of a unique time in the Navy. Served for 10 years, did 4 deployments, 2 to Afghanistan, 2 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. It was an absolute privilege. I was stationed in North Carolina for a bit, going through medical training there at the Special Warfare Center. Met my beautiful bride, Karen. She made me the luckiest man on the earth. And then she gave me 3 just amazing children. Right now they are 13, 12, and 10. Little rascals, as I call them, but they're just amazing kids. So we homeschool our kids. We live in Orange, Virginia. And I spent about then another 8 years after my time in the service working for the federal government in different capacities, both at the Department of State as well as with the Department of Homeland Security. Now I'm looking to serve the American people in a new way by running for Congress as a limited government constitutional conservative.
And how did you make the jump to that, Cameron? I mean, because it's a big jump, and and then tell us too about the size of your district. Because I saw that Quantico. I went to George Mason. I've lived in Fairfax and Mount Vernon. So tell us your district as well. So how did you make the jump and why? Because that's amazing to want to serve us. And then tell us how big the district is.
Absolutely. So the district is fairly large. It's just shy of 1 million people. It encompasses 10 counties. It's from Madison, Greene, Culpeper, Orange, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, Caroline, King George, Stafford, and then the eastern third of Prince William County. And there's also a sliver of Albemarle, kind of towards just north of Charlottesville. The district itself is about, 50% suburban and 50% rural. So it kind of has this unique demographic. And it also, because of its proximity to D.C., it's just southwest, and it's very close to the I-95. It actually engulfs both sides of the I-95 from Quantico all the way down to Spotsylvania. There's a lot of federal government employees. So it's a unique district where federal regulation, federal policy, appropriations bills, things that pertain to the nation of this country, or the national government, is not just state and local government, but the national government, are very much involved. And the voter and constituents here have a unique disposition towards being affected by federal regulation in a way that's unclassical for other districts across the country. I got in this race because I've worked for the federal government for virtually my entire career. I served for 10 years in the Navy and then worked for 5 years at the State Department protecting dignitaries and VIPs such as the Secretary of State, U.S. ambassadors overseas, and some of the more tourist-friendly locations like Somalia and other places like that. And so I also worked at DHS as a division director, managing oversight of roughly 4,000 EMTs scattered throughout the southern border. I will say that from a federal space and from my unique perspective, I've worked on diplomatic affairs, legislative affairs, military affairs, you name it. I mean, just national security matters. I mean, I've worked in so many different fields and characteristics that I was ultimately recruited by some really compelling people that felt that I should do them the honor of being their representative. I'll be honest, though, too, I think God has put this on my heart. My family and my wife and I, we've not wanted to be apathetic bystanders, just watching this nation continue in the trajectory it's going. So we spent a lot of time in prayer. We spent a lot of time trying to dedicate this decision to God and thinking about, what would a humble servant leader do? When people are asking you to serve, when people are recruiting you and seeking you out and telling you that we need a new kind of government back, we need a new kind of principled conservative that believes in the foundation of the Republican movement, not necessarily what it's become now. And so that's what I'm running on. So for me, it was a lot of prayer, a lot of close discussion. And then one last thing, a good friend of mine, Nick Freitas, who's just remarkable. He's my current state delegate. He's a former Green Beret. So we have, of course, an Army-Navy rivalry that we joke and we try to throw snippets at each other. But Nick ultimately asked me. He ran in 2020, and he was unsuccessful in taking the seat. But he's really just such a remarkable individual, an incredible legislator. He spent a lot of time mentoring me and speaking with me about ultimately when people were looking to him, he felt that God was telling him to look to me. So that's probably the decision.
That's so powerful.
That we came to. Thank you. It's just I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a Christian man. I'm running because at the end of the day, my kids, I'm looking at their future. I'm looking at the blessings and the richness of this country and just such amazing opportunities it provides to live with principle and to live in peace. And I'm just frustrated at seeing the future that my children are likely to inherit. So I'm done being an apathetic bystander. I'm stepping onto a new battlefield because I think that we have a nation to save.
So Cameron, the district you're running in, Congressional District 7, is Cook rates it as a lean Democrat district, and the current representative is Spanberg, and I guess she's not running again. Do you see that changing? I know one of the things we talked with Hung Cao about, who's running for the Senate, is I guess that Virginia is a purple state, but I guess it's slowly moving more red. Is that the nature of your district, or is Washington just so and the federal government so dominant?
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of a unique circumstance that we're in. Abigail Spanberger. So this district has a lot of roots in the Tea Party movement and in a lot of different elements of just strong, principled conservatives that are trying to limit executive power and intrusion into their daily lives in a way that was never intended by our founders. So in 2014, Eric Cantor, the second most powerful Republican in the House of Representatives, was unseated in his own primary by David Bratt.
Yeah, I love that
really
race.
Remarkable. Who was a Freedom Caucus candidate. He was one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus. And so David Bratt's endorsed me, and I'm incredibly honored to have his support. He's had a big presence at Liberty University. That race showed some of the underbelly that is really present within this district that's currently, I live in Orange, Virginia, about 3 miles from where James Madison is laid to rest. So this district has such rich history and principled conservatism that when Abigail Spanberger upseated David Bratt in 2018, she ran on the Democratic Party platform of that time, which was radically anti-Trump, and to be honest, was just sort of an unconventional, more moderate Democratic Party, at least at the time. They were never Trumpers, and that's fine. The Democratic Party now has moved substantially to the left, and I don't mean a little bit. I mean dramatically to the left. And so she's vacating the seat, and she never really got off that 2018 platform. She tried to placate herself as a moderate Democrat, and her voting record says otherwise. But publicly, she's very personable. People like her. She engages well. She's very active in the community. And those are good things, except for her policy advocacy. Having said that, because she's vacating her seat early, this is a once-in-a-30-year kind of shift. The underbelly of unseating a moderate Democrat in a very moderate district is exceedingly difficult, especially one that's well-disciplined like Abigail Spanberger was and well-funded. So because she's vacating, the whole calculus on this district changes. Right now we're anticipating a several-point shift in favor of Republicans, and polling will confirm this especially soon, but we're already seeing the early signs of it. Number two, the Democratic opponents we're running against, like I said earlier, are radically to the left of where she was in 2018 when she first ran. Abigail Spanberger was smart. She was on a conference call with the Democratic conference, and she rebuked AOC and the squad for supporting the defund the police movement. And that became another, I think, survival technique that she applied because she wanted to garner support from local law enforcement. The new Democratic Party is very different. It's very, very different. So they're all trying to out-progressive each other, which means we have a unique opportunity. This is, in my opinion, this is a seat that absolutely will favor a strong conservative over a progressive any day. So that's what we're seeing. Glenn Youngkin won this district by several points.
Excellent.
So it is a winnable seat. And he ran on kitchen table issues, just connecting with average, everyday voters on principled matters. You know, Terry McAuliffe lost the race to Glenn Youngkin because he dared to say, no, parents shouldn't be able to choose what their kids are learning in school. I mean, I'm sorry. Even moderate Democrats look at that and hear, what? What are you talking about? This is insane. So that's what we're facing in this district. And I'm running as not only a Republican, but as a Republican who's very, very willing to criticize the Republican Party when we get things wrong. That is the appetite. People are feeling disenfranchised, disengaged, and disconnected from their leaders in a way that's very dangerous. And so I think the platform I'm running on, I'm gaining ground every day. I'm talking to even progressive and moderate business owners. They love my economic policies I advocate for because I'm a pretty radical libertarian when it comes to financial issues. Balance the budget, pay down the debt, restrain the federal intrusion, really deregulate our economy so that people can take more home, that people can afford more payroll, you name it. And so that's the recipe of what people want now.
Well, I want to ask you, and I know John will jump in here too, because we want to talk your issues, endorsements, and then who the competition is, because we've got to take them out, because you know you've got two people now that love all your platforms because we've been researching you. But the number one issue that John and I talk about all the time, and you've been part of the Homeland Security, is this week the border was overrun, I think by 600 or 700 people. All the gotaways. I mean, now there's like 12 million people. We don't know who the hell any of these people are. So, and then we've had the college student that was killed. Both my children live in New York City, so I'm always like panicked. So talk about the border issue, because there's not a lot of there's not that many congressmen, congresswomen that are fighting the fight. I mean, Congressman Gates is from our area. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a fighter. So where do you stand on the border and getting this under control? And then are we going to deport these illegals out of here that I don't know who you are?
Yeah. So I think we have to. I worked at DHS for about 3 years as a division director for emergency medical services. So I maintained oversight of roughly 4,000 EMTs. And these EMTs were really remarkable people. They work, these men and women that are brave. They're working on the southern border, given a job that, frankly, I don't even know how they come to work every day, because they're constantly being messed with, and the policies of this administration are completely in contradiction to what's best for our national interest. So the morale is the lowest as possible. What I can tell your listeners, everything you see in the news about the border is worse. No matter what you see on TV, no matter these graphic images and videos, it is so much worse. I have talked with and I've met with so many people. We've had Border Patrol agents that have been assaulted and flat out beaten up by groups of migrants. I mean, it is the Wild West on parts of the southern border. And I don't think the American people really understand it. I also don't think the American people understand the cost. We are now in a position where we are spending more money than has ever happened in the United States history on southern border enforcement, and yet we have the most open and porous system. What's worse, we have industries in the United States, faith-based industries, that are being co-opted, receiving and I say this very clearly, hundreds of millions of dollars of federal grants to relocate migrants to the United States.
Let's see, is he still there? Let's see.
Nope.
He might have
I'm not
dropped
hearing anything.
Yeah, he might have dropped off.
Oh, can you hear me?
Okay, now we hear
you
you. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were talking about that we've got all these faith-based organizations that are receiving millions of dollars, which John and I know about that because we're Catholic, and we know one of them's a Catholic one. So
Catholic
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Catholic Charities of America has received almost $200 million per year through federal grants to relocate migrants to the U.S. interior. It's just astonishing. This is insanity. And so we can't continue this. We also have Lutheran Immigration Relocation Services and many others. They're making profit off relocating migrants to the U.S. interior. It's unforgivable. So I'm a border hawk. I've seen the border. We saw it after the transition of the administration. For a few weeks, we saw all the intelligence reports showing that the border was about to fall wide open. We knew it. We saw everything being structured. We had plenty of preparation and time. The policies still changed, and in 3 days, we lost complete operational control of this border. And it was just remarkable how inept and, frankly, how willfully malfeasant we had many in our government being. So that's what we're seeing now. I'm an absolute border hawk. We should not be sending money to defend nations overseas, such as with Ukraine or with the funding aid that we give towards the government of Jordan for their national sovereignty and borders, if we can't even secure our own border. It's absurd. So my opinion is the government, our federal government, only has a few very specific enumerated powers and authorities. National immigration and southern border enforcement is one of them. We need to get back to the basics. If our government can't secure our southern border, it's not because it's not funded enough. We keep dumping more and more money at these problems without realizing we have a policy issue. It's not a matter of dollars. So the American people deserve better. And my position is if we're not willing to actually secure the southern border, then maybe we should consider shutting the government down. Maybe we should consider drastically overhauling what we fund and how we pay for things, because this is not acting as a fiduciary for the American people. It's putting our nation at risk. It is any day now, God help us, we are going to see terrorist attacks taken out in this country because we have no control.
I'm
and
so
no
worried.
of who's coming here. Yep, exactly. So my position is I'm an absolute border hawk.
Okay, I love that.
Cameron, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about with your district, and I wanted to get a sense of the sentiment in there, and just for comparison purposes, I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia, and when you were talking about history of an area, it is so powerful. The way I grew up, the Constitution, the Revolution, that means something very different to me than apparently a lot of Americans these days. And one of the popular songs is Richmond, north of Richmond. And your district is right there north of Richmond. Is that something that strikes a chord? I've found so many places where there's conservatives that song has struck a chord with so many people. And I'm just curious if you've seen any of that in that area.
We definitely have. So the Richmond, north of Richmond song was really kind of compelling and unique. But, man, it really connected with people in such a real and practical way. I think what we've seen now is kind of a revolt of the citizens, of the constituents here, where they're frustrated because they feel like it really almost doesn't matter which party you vote for. The issues that we're finding concerning aren't being addressed. And that's a real problem. That's a real tangible problem that people need to recognize. So this district, especially because of its rich history with James Madison and Thomas Jefferson and many others, is growing especially frustrated because we see the southern border open. We see more social aid and benefit going towards, migrants that are here illegally, that are being shipped to the U.S. interior. And we have farmers in rural communities that are really struggling. We have gas prices that are high. We have inflation hitting our grocery bills. And I mean, it's absurd. And we're spending money and we're being told by the traditional Republican movement, oh, hey, this was a legislative and conservative victory. No, it wasn't. We're just adding insult to injury here. So I think at the end of the day, my frustration with what we're seeing right now and what I think is growing is that people want us to get back to the basics. They want our government to work. They want our government to serve our interests, our needs, and they want to ensure that they're advocating for the average, everyday American who frankly is neglected, especially with business owners. I mean, there's veteran support is so critical to my platform, but we also have small business owners that are left out to dry. They're being targeted by the IRS. They're being targeted by the ATF and other regulatory agencies. And when are they going to get advocated for? When are we going to talk about expanding the Tax Cut and Job Act? When are we going to talk about regulatory reform so that people can take home more of their hard-earned dollars and not fund pet projects and programs? When are we going to talk about restraining congressional or government spending and so that people can keep more of their hard-earned cash as opposed to just dumping it in the state treasury to get put on, some new climate initiative that doesn't actually serve the American people? People are pissed. People are getting frustrated. So I think that song was amazing. I think it exactly resonated not only the sentiment of what's going on here in Virginia, but I'll be honest, I think that was a nationwide sensation of virtually every American saying, you know what? Yeah, that's right. These rich men north of Richmond are sort of, and it's not just men, I say that allegorically, but these rich folks north of Richmond, they're really not working for us. Because at the end of the day, I tell people, our tax code is so complicated. You know why? Because it wasn't written for you and I. It was written for lobbyists, and it was written for special interest groups. And that's what we need to realize. So, and it took someone, ironically, like Donald Trump to come out and expose things like this. So, look, I think the era of the past practice is over, and I think it's now time for we the people to step up and to start demanding better from our government. But it starts everywhere, state, locally, nationally, you name it. We have to affect it everywhere. Even our school boards have now become hot seats. So I agree with a lot of things said in that song, and I think that this is a unique opportunity we have to really rise up and reclaim the authority the American people have.
So where do you find yourself on the spectrum of Republicans in Congress? You know, I'm sure you're aware that Ken Buck is quit. You know, reducing our military, our advantage, the Republican advantage in the House, and I'm trying to remember who somebody else quit yesterday.
Gallagher. Was it Gallagher? Yes, Gallagher. I'm so disappointed. Yeah. He was one of my favorites. I'm like, what the hell?
And that one was so outrageous that
oh my gosh,
he resigned the day after it stops a special election from happening.
I mean, it was
so
disgusting.
His district has no representation.
It was absolutely disgusting.
So Republicans are not, they're
not doing the right thing. I'm like, who's on our team, Cameron?
So where are you on the spectrum? Say Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene to a Ken Buck kind of spectrum.
So I'm pledged to join the Freedom Caucus right now. The Freedom Caucus has actually endorsed me. If that tells you anything about my political philosophy. I've been endorsed by Senator Rand Paul, by Thomas Massey from Kentucky, also by Mark Green, chairman of the Homeland Committee, Scott Perry, Bob Good, Eli Crane, Anna Paulina Luna. I mean, just so many amazing patriots. Yep. Ralph Norman. I mean, just Tom Homan, even former director of ICE for President Trump.
You forgot Rand Paul.
I'm a strong constitutional conservative.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I'm a strong constitutional conservative, and of the Republican majority, we really only have about 80 to 90 really strong conservatives. I wish that weren't the case, but it's just reality. We have a lot that are very weak on fiscal issues. They say wonderful things. They promise great platform positions, but they vote very moderate. And it's really unfortunate, and I get frustrated by seeing a lot of that. So I'm on the right flank of the party, but I really bring, when it comes to regulation and when it comes to government intrusion, I'm very much in kind of the libertarian element of the camp thinking, what is the government doing now? We never gave it these authorities on purpose, so we need to restrain executive intrusion drastically. So on fiscal issues, I'm a staunch libertarian, deregulate our economy, let people bring home more pay. On social issues, look, I'm a strong Christian conservative. I believe firmly in the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life. I mean, these are not things to run away from or to shy away from. These are things that I believe in very firmly. And so at the end of the day, I plan to join the Freedom Caucus if given the honor to join that. And it's not a perfectly homogenous group. There is some differentiation between different, subgroups of the Freedom Caucus. But I'm one of the conservatives that believes the Republican Party has disappointed the American people time and time again.
Yeah.
And we need to connect with the American people and we need to legitimately criticize at times when the Republican Party has failed. So I don't prop up parties. I believe in principle. I'm a man of principle, and I believe you are who the company you keep. So I want to keep company who are fighting for this nation. I'd be honored for Matt Gaetz' endorsement. He has not endorsed me yet. I hope that at some point he will. I'd be honored for his endorsement, as well as many other great patriots and freedom fighters that are on the side of liberty and freedom for the American people, as well as fiscal restraint.
He's been on our show, so we'll have to work that for you. He's a regular. I know him well for 10 years. He needs to get with the program.
Please endorse me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he's criticized for, and this is where I differ with Newt Gingrich in particular, because Newt hates Matt Gaetz for what he did.
So many people hate him,
but Matt was absolutely right, because he says if we don't get back to regular order, if we don't get back to passing appropriation bills the way we're supposed to, instead of these continuing resolutions, which have been going on for year after year after year, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I am too.
And it's like, why can't you people do your job? And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to force them to do their job, and they don't want to do it, And how do you do a sea change?
Thomas Massey gave a very I have to give him some credit here. He gave a very principled response and rebuttal to why he didn't support the removal of Kevin McCarthy. Now, ultimately, I didn't agree with him. But that being said, I understand his rationale. Kevin McCarthy did give significant concessions in contrast to what Boehner and Speaker Ryan did before when they were in the Speaker's office. So I will say the one vote to vacate and then the privileged filing for removal of the Speaker, as well as other things, regular order, 72-hour rules, these were things that Speaker McCarthy did have to capitulate on in order to assume the gavel. And when we removed Speaker McCarthy, those were potentially up for grabs. And so what we've seen yesterday in this omnibus bill, which, by the way, I'm radically opposed to because I think it's irresponsible, what we saw there was, again, the Republican Party and the Republican leadership not adhering to some of the rules that had previously been promised. So Thomas Massey's concern was, if we remove Kevin McCarthy, who knows what the next deal will look like? We made great concessions. Kevin's not perfect. He doesn't have a really conservative record, but he's certainly better than Boehner or Ryan was, and I think he's right in that sense. However, I still supported the removal of Kevin McCarthy because the man wasn't a true conservative, in my opinion. Number two, Kevin McCarthy also really messed with a lot of primaries throughout this country, not in a good way. Now, he helped out some great people. Morgan Luttrell, Patriot from Texas. I served with him at SEAL Team 8. Kevin McCarthy really helped Morgan when he was in a crowded primary. I recognize that. People have personal agendas and they have personal loyalty. I understand. Kevin McCarthy also, though, really hurt some candidates in primaries and also withheld funding from candidates who won primaries that he said he would support as the leader of the party, but ultimately didn't. So he's a mixed bag, and that's why I thought, you know what? He's not evil, but there's better options out there. I was hopeful for Speaker Johnson, but I'll be very transparent with your viewers. If Speaker Johnson is going to be representing more of what we've seen yesterday, I think we need new leadership again.
Well,
this is a very difficult road to go down.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is going after him. So, you know,
so
I've been putting on X that maybe she needs to be in the speaker position because we need an iron lady we need somebody with cojones that is going to fight the fight. And these people are so weak, Cameron. They're weak.
Well, Veronica, I disagree strongly with what she's doing because there's no plan. We're back to chaos. If they have a plan, that's fine.
Well, somebody needs to come up with the plan. If that's Cameron that can write the plan, let's do it. Or let you and I write it.
But, we don't need to be. We're shooting ourselves in the foot.
And I do like the speaker now. I think he's a godly man. Yeah, the quitting. I'm just beyond. The Gallagher pushed me over the edge yesterday, and you know.
Yeah. But how close are we to giving the Democrats control? You know,
I'm very concerned because that's what I wanted to ask you because Cameron,
one vote away now.
I don't want to remove Speaker Johnson right now. I don't know that I fully agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene's filing. Having said that, on specifically the matter of removing Speaker Johnson, I'm going to reserve my final judgment until I talk to friends of mine. I have friends who are currently serving in Congress. Yeah. And there's a lot of backdoor conversations that are happening.
And we've talked to them offline. You know, they're just like, if they get the votes, they don't want to take people out. Even I've been told, even rhinos. Correct. You know, because most of the time a rhino will vote with you, is what I've been told by some higher ups. So, I get it.
I just want to make sure that if this is pursued, it has to be done a little bit cleaner than maybe how it was done last time, so that the American people feel. This isn't just creating chaos. I also think, to be honest, though, about Kevin McCarthy, criticize the process with all you will. The fact is, when Kevin lost his speakership, he then vacated his seat not long afterwards.
Right.
Now, granted, that's a seat that's projected to be won by a Republican, but still, we are now left without that vote in the House right now in a way that shows, okay, so it really wasn't about public service. It was about your public image. I'm frustrated with that. Gallagher, I think look, I understand anyone saying, look, I have a personal matter to contend with. I can't do this anymore. I totally recognize that. Public service should be a service. Having said that, you have constituents that you are now disenfranchising that are expecting you to advocate for them that now are facing the issue of whether or not they're even going to have representation before November.
Yeah,
Gallagher,
terrific.
I think, is a categorical failure. You either sit your full term or you leave now and let someone else replace you before the end to do a special election. So I think his decision is irresponsible and very selfish.
Yeah, I'm
now,
angry.
Look, I pray for the man's family. I pray to God that everything is okay with his family.
Yeah.
And I hope that it's nothing dramatic. Having said that, I think the manner in which he's going about vacating a seat is irresponsible and is unfair for the American people, especially his constituents who sent him to D.C. So I'm frustrated at things like that. So I just want to ensure if we're going to have a conversation about removing more people, we need to really have a coherent plan. The same thing goes with George Santos. I've been very critical of Santos. I think the guy's a piece of work. And never should have been elected in the first place. Having said that, Republicans were more willing to kick out Santos, who, my point was, this is a categorical mistake. If ever you wanted to show that people were out of touch with the average American voter, there's a process to remove someone like Santos. It's called a recall. Let the constituents of his district do that. Instead, Congress knows better. We're going to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters.
On a funny note, he was throwing his hat back into the ring last week as a Republican running for I guess Congress, but then this week he changed. He's so pissed at the Republicans, he became an independent with his Botox lips. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
And the part that I thought was so funny was here you had the Republican that was head of the ethics committee that basically arranged to get him kicked out, was saying, well, he's a liar. And it's like, well, show me somebody in Congress. That's your standard for kicking people out. You need to kick them all out.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Cameron, I wanted to ask you because John and I, we're Catholic and we're huge pro-lifers. And that's one of your platforms that you stand with. And, you've got the 3 beautiful children. And it seems like it's so disgusting that one of the number one platforms for the left and Kamala Harris is fighting for reproductive freedom for women and women's health. And to think, if you go on the White House Instagram or Kamala's, it's constantly pushing that, even AG Letitia from New York, had that this week on her X. So talk about why you're such a pro-lifer, because John and I fight all the time for the unborn, and I cannot believe this is their number one. We have border, and they have killing babies. Yeah.
I'm a pro-life man because my Christian faith compels me to be. I believe every human being is created in the image of God, right, wrong, or indifferent. And again, to draw awareness, we had National Down Syndrome Day? A few days ago.
Right.
And there's a huge movement of people aborting children because they have these genetic abnormalities. And I think that doesn't show the goodness of God. That doesn't show the goodness of inherent worth. I remind people I'm a conservative because I believe that each individual has inherent worth and value in the sight of our Maker, and that our government should represent the best defense for their values, which is why I advocate for lower taxes, because I'd rather you use your agency and have the ability to say where your money goes, which is why I'm a staunch defender of individual liberties, because I believe you should be able to live free without intrusion and unrestricted by this government, which is why I advocate for so many principles, because it's my belief that each human being has worth, which is why I believe I don't like minimum sentencing requirements within our criminal justice system, because I believe every individual facing judicial recourse should have the opportunity to hear their case and to have it argued before a judge independently without bias and without stipulation. So I'm a very firm advocate on people's inherent worth. And when it comes to life, I just believe, my wife and I, our youngest child almost passed. He had a very significant health issue when he was born. I won't go into all the parameters of it, but we almost lost him when he was born. If he had been born about 12 hours later, he likely would have been a stillborn because of a blood condition. So he was flown up to UNC. He almost passed. He received an exchange transfusion of blood, and he was in the NICU for over a month. And for my wife and I, we named him Salem, a root word for peace in Hebrew, because it brought about a peace in our marriage at a time when we were really struggling. And to be honest, there were a lot of marital issues that we were dealing with, and, not infidelity or anything like that, but we were just, we weren't getting along as well as we could have been. We were kind of, really adversarial in different ways, and it really ushered in a period of peace because of God's goodness. So as a father who almost lost a child, I'll never know what it's like to be one who has. But I can tell you that the feeling and the sense of joy at knowing that our child would survive this condition is nothing like you could ever imagine. And I just believe firmly that these children should be advocated for firmly. And so I think we as a culture, we have to recognize that there's a cultural war at stake here. The Democratic Party platform and position is abortion up to the moment of birth under the Women's Health Care Protection Act. That's a position that 90% of Americans think is too far. So I'm very clear. Republicans need to stop retreating from this issue. We need to go on the offense. 90% of Americans believe that there should be limitations to abortion. There is nothing radical or obscene about the fact that that's what we hold to. I think we need to be very clear and principled. We can have a discussion on when and where, but at the end of the day, the fact that we believe there should be limitations is nothing that we should shy away from. And I'm very clear and firm on that. The Democratic Party, if anything, they need to justify why they are so radical on this issue.
Yeah, it's horrific.
People said, I'm moving to Europe. Like, okay, go to France. They have a 6-week ban. Like, after 6 weeks, you can't get an abortion. Like, they have much more conservative laws on abortion than we do. And people think, oh, America's tyrannical. It's not. People are out of touch with reality, and this is the problem that we have with social media in today's era, is we have an entire generation of kids that think things that are categorically untrue. So, look, it's frustrating, and I'm exceedingly worried about the trajectory of this nation, which is why I think we just need to show the goodness of God and advocate for every individual. Plus, I've had family members survive sexual assault. Very egregious, just horrible sexual assault. I'll never know what it's like to be someone who's experienced that personally, but I do know what it's like to love people who have. And I can say very firmly, I can have empathy and grace for both a woman facing a critical decision as well as an unborn child. And that's what I think that we're missing from this conversation. So I also have some very radical positions when it comes to the adoption laws that we have in this country. A friend of mine spent almost $20,000 and has waited a year and a half to adopt a child. Why are we dealing with all this bureaucratic nightmare with the adoption agencies? And number two, why is it cheaper for us through trade policy to import children from overseas than to adopt children that are already here that should be loved and that could be taken into a loving home? These are examples of government bureaucracy that's not serving the people. It's serving interests and lobbyists. So, look, I think that answered my question, but ultimately I'm an advocate for the individual, and I believe that we should show the goodness of God in our policy.
You know, Cameron, one of the things that brought to mind when you were talking was we'd talked to Kathy Barnett, who was running for the Senate in Pennsylvania, and she is her mother was raped
at 11.
And her grandparents intervened and saved her from being aborted. And about powerful
she'd never really
testimony.
talked about that before, and she did on our show, and we were all crying because
it was powerful.
People forget about the baby, and she stated, I would have never been able to run against Dr. Oz for Senate. Right. Work for Vivek Ramaswamy, have 2 kids, have a wonderful husband, and be an African American leader out there. And so it was very powerful. Well, we love that you support the pro-life initiative. The other thing I was very intrigued with, and Congressman Gates aligns with you as well, is the military members that were kicked out for not taking the vax. Congressman Gates wants them to be reinstated if they were up for a promotion, to receive back pay and be promoted. And so he's been a fighter for that as well. And part of the military, I'd love to hear your take on too. And John and I, like General Milley drives us insane because there's no white supremacy. I mean, I wore a uniform for 20 years, people. Yeah. I was treated so equal.
This guy is the leader.
Well, there's so much about the military, and then how he came out and he didn't know what was happening, when we pulled out of Afghanistan. And anyways, I just feel like our military, we need to fight for people, the good people, to come back. Yeah. And then the general, John and I have had, a lot of people that have worked for big time generals that have written books, and I've had generals on too, but they're there's this narrative. They get so political when they're up there, and that we're woke in the military, and why recruiting's bad. So tell me just your thoughts on the military as a whole, and what you'll do for the military when you are in Congress. And you were a stud Navy SEAL, everybody, a stud. So.
Well, I would love to fire a lot of our military leadership. I'll be very clear and transparent about that, which
me too.
I'm sure the general officers will not like hearing, but I'd just be very transparent. I respect Matt Gaetz tremendously. He's the only one that asked this question, but I also got to give a lot of credit to Andy Biggs and a few others, Corey Mills, who've been advocating for service members that have really been prosecuted. When we talk about supporting veterans, everyone likes to think about, health benefits and, these support, capabilities at the VA. And those are all wonderful things, but I've been very, very clear about this. The best way to help out veterans and service members is by advocating for their constitutional rights. 8,500 service members were kicked out of the military for an unconstitutional mandate. And they've not been made whole. They've not been reinstated. In fact, when Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of the DOD, was asked about reinstating them, he said no on the floor of the U.S. House. So that's now public. It's a public deposition. It's a matter of public record. That shows you very clearly this government is not working for us. This government believes that unconstitutional mandates are totally fair game. Well, no, they're not, and things will only be fixed when we, the people, stand up to it. So. I've been very clear. I signed the Declaration of Military Accountability. It was an honor to sign that with 230 other great patriots. The point there being, this was one of the greatest constitutional challenges that we had of our day, and most people were silent about it. And that's just egregious, in my opinion. So I think very clearly we have to reconcile this. We have to fix our military. We have to ensure that they're upholding the rights of every service member, and that they're focusing on wartime lethality, not these cultural issues.
Yes.
Our military is there to defend our great nation. And so the way to do that, well, number one, I'd love to restrict funding to the military until they publicly declare, yes, this was unconstitutional. Congress did it back in 2022, but they failed to do it in 2023. I was very frustrated that happened. Number two, I'd love to fire a lot of high-ranking officers in the military or hold them to publicly account and give their positions for things that they stood for, which ultimately in court were determined to be unconstitutional. When do we hold them accountable? So I'd love to strip their qualified immunity. I'd love to ensure that if they violated the law, they're held personally accountable, not just the military in general. Because I think right now we need cowboy generals again who are willing to defend our rights, but are willing to be bold and be brave to actually advocate for liberty and freedom in the right way. We don't need a political class of high-ranking officers that are only looking at their promotion. So that's my take on it. I think we have categorical issues. My hope is to stand up in that entire panel of my team. If I'm elected, Lord willing, I would hope to have a portion of my team, and I'm already looking at key individuals to recruit, to specifically look at military accountability. How do we ensure that our military is focusing on the purposes it has to be on, and how do we hold it accountable when it gets involved in matters that it should not be?
Well, sign me up.
I am.
Sign me up.
I'm 100% behind you on that, because that is a constant theme on our show.
Yes.
Is the lack of accountability for the military in Washington, and not just military, but but particularly, Veronica and I are we're neck deep in this, as far as the military goes, to understand it, but nobody's held accountable for anything these days, and that's one of the things I want to ask you: can it be fixed? I mean, I saw the Navy shipbuilding plan came out this week, and I was appalled at looking at it. And it's one of those things where it says, well, to get to a 430 ship Navy, we're going to have to drop down to 260 first over the next 5 years. And I'm like, you people are insane.
Especially with China's number one threat out there. Dear
Lord. There's no rhyme or reason to this. They're retiring ships that are 5 or 6 or 10 years old. We're spending billions and billions, and they're saying, hey, we need more billions of dollars. It's like you can't figure out what war you're trying to fight. Why do you need more billions of dollars, to waste?
I think it can be fixed, but I think it's going to take a warrior general or a warrior admiral to really come in and lead with vigor. So, honest to God, I really hope at some point someone like Jocko Willink becomes the next Secretary of Defense, because I think he would be astonishing. I think he would clean house, and I think he would make sure everyone focuses on, you know what, we don't need to invest all this money in hypersonic missiles. What we need to get back to is wartime preparedness. Mass movement of troops across geographical regions for nation-state conflict in a first-world setting. We really need to take a firm
and
look
not
at what...
pride luncheons and pride,
Exactly.
I'm so over that.
We need to stop having these woke officers talking about cultural diversity in the sense that, hey, isn't it great that we're affirming trans service members? I'm sorry.
No, I don't need that.
That is such a distraction from the battlefield.
It is a distraction.
That is such a distraction.
Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
Well, Cameron, we've got to do, because you can't be here all day, even though I want to talk to you all day. So we're going to do a rapid fire. I call this my rapid fire. So I'm going to tell you, a quick thing, and you just give me like a quick sentence or two, because if not, we'll talk to you all day, and then your wife will be mad at us. Yep. So to start, Trump and Biden, tell us your thoughts real quick, because, just real fast, John and I think this election in November is critical.
Yeah. I think Biden's incompetent. I think he's going to lose in November, or they might replace him. I'm a supporter of President Trump. The man's not perfect, but the man has some amazing policy positions for the American people. He's working hard for the American people, so I'm firm in my support for him.
Okay. Israel.
I'm a big supporter. I'm a Zionist, so I'm a huge supporter of Israel. I always will be. So I think Israel needs to take the fight to Hamas. My hope is that eventually there will be peace, but that has to be on the terms of the Israelis and the Palestinians, not the international community.
Ukraine.
I do not want to send any more money to the Ukraine right now. I think it's an absolute waste, and it lacks accountability.
Taiwan.
Big supporter of Taiwan. I think we need to look at our economic policies towards China to create a deterrent, but I do not want to see China invade Taiwan. I also, that's a really difficult topic to talk about because there's so many nuanced issues. At the end of the day, huge supporter of Taiwan. I think they need to be one of our strategic partners in the region, and I believe in supporting and defending them if at all possible, but I do not want the United States to get drawn into a war with China.
Okay, red flag laws.
I do not support them.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about Second Amendment.
I'm a constitutional conservative, so I think that tells you where I stand. I'm pretty firm.
You like guns, I guess.
I do not support infringing on people's Second Amendment rights, period.
Okay. Well, those are, John, did I miss any issues that you wanted, John?
I think we've covered a
lot.
A whole spectrum here.
So my next question is, there's a lot of people running as Republicans and Dems, and you've got a lot of money. So how's it looking for you? Because like when Hung Cao took out like 9 people, I think, in his Republican race. He just couldn't take out the loser Dem. So
and he didn't have the local Republican Party of Virginia was not supporting him either. They were actually against him.
And the governor stepped up for him. Is the governor? Do you think will make an endorsement for you?
So I don't think the governor will get involved in the primary. I actually don't think the governor should be involved in primaries. I think it's improper. That's just my personal take on it. Just because the office that he sits in, it has unique influence.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to see him sway it. I think it's really about the voters of the Virginia 7th. And right now, look, I'm gaining support every single day. I'm running as a firm constitutional conservative, as the constitutional conservative in this race. I'm running to pledge to join the Freedom Caucus, which people love and connect with here very well. So I think at the end of the day, look, we're picking up steam. We're kicking rear ends and taking names right now, and we're really running hard. And I'm one of the only candidates in this race that is firmly committing to key positions on my platform and on what I advocate for. And I think that's what people want. They want to be held accountable. They want a public official that's willing to commit to key issues, even if they're controversial. They want to see that you're a fighter and that you're willing to say, yes, this is what I believe in and here's why. I'll debate with you all day long, but these are my values. And so that's what I'm running on too. So I think right now I'm definitely the kind of candidate that I think voters in Virginia 7 are going to favor, but it's ultimately up to them. I'd be honored to serve them. I would love to be an ambassador for them, because that's what I see this as, a servant leader role, serving their will, not my own, not agendas, but really making sure that power is vested back in the hands of the people. And so that kind of message is incredibly popular right now, and I think we're going to do remarkably well. So I'm a staunch, limited government constitutional conservative. I'm also a father, husband, and Christian running on family values. So as I say, back to the basics. That's my platform.
Love it.
Back to the basics.
And how will your Navy SEAL training help you in Congress? Because, I mean, you know how to...
I was raised as a fighter, so I definitely, when it comes to a fight, I think we keep being told by the Republican Party, hey, let's elect people that are more moderate because, well, we can win more elections. It doesn't work when we put more jerseys on our team, but we lose the game. So I'm a firm position of, if you want to win races, if you want to win seats, we need to start electing more fighters because people will rally behind them and will believe in them, especially fighters that invoke a message of hope. And that's really what I'm running on, is a message of hope that we can be prosperous again. We can be a nation that restores its foundation again if we only have the will to do it. So that's my solution. We need to put more fighters in D.C., not people that are just say and promise great things, but people that show the scars. You know, I signed on to a lawsuit with the Feds for Freedom on the Fifth Circuit Court to oppose the vaccine mandates, and we won in court against the federal government when everyone said we couldn't. So I've got the scars to prove that I'm a fighter. I'm a defender of freedom and liberty, and it would be my honor to represent the American people.
Love it. And people can find you on Twitter at Cameron VA. Your website is CameronHamilton.com, and then you're on Facebook, Cameron Hamilton for Congress. So what a pleasure. Yep. You might be my new favorite Navy SEAL now, Cameron. Don't tell my fighter pilot husband. My fighter pilot husband will be jealous. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
Well,
God bless you both. Thank you so much.
Godspeed. And it's been a pleasure, such a pleasure. And we'll be right back on Veronica Live. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and I'm here now with Statesman John. Oh my gosh, we've had such a powerful show already, John, this morning with the state attorney on fire, and then we just had Virginia congressional candidate Cameron Hamilton, a Navy SEAL. Sign me up. I'm like, okay, I want to be on his team when he takes over. You know, so that's the thing. These are sharp people fighting for America and what's right, and you know, if you elect these people. Well, Larry Basford's in our district, but, you know, Virginia is a wonderful state, and we've got to have strong people in there fighting. And I think you and I supported everything he said today for the congressional candidate. I was like, wow.
Well, he's running for the right reasons, and he's got principles that he's willing to stand on. And that's, you know, it's the same thing with Hung Kao, you know, who's running for the Virginia Senate. I mean, these are quality candidates. These are quality people that you want to vote for, that you want to be associated with. And they're the kind of people we need to save this country. That's who we need to get elected, because they get it. They get the problem.
Yeah, no, it's
and they're willing to stand up. You know,
he was superb, and he has great ideas, and he wants to clean house, and he you know, he wasn't so on board getting rid of Speaker Johnson yet. You know, he wants a plan. So. Right. And in the military, we're used to having plans, because when you go to war, you have a plan. It doesn't always go perfect, but you are, you know the enemy, you know the territory, you know the time you're launching, you know what you're going to missiles you're using or airplanes you're going to fight in. You know, you have a plan when you show up.
And then you expect the plan to change, because things don't always go according to the plan, and you have to be willing to adapt and change tactics. And that's you know, to me, that's the warrior ethos. You know, I think that's what we're seeing a lot of, and maybe that's what it takes to get civilians, you know, to save not only the government but to save our military from itself, because it's become so woke and foolish. You know, spending all their time and money on foolishness rather than preparing, you know, to defend this country, which is what their job is. But,
so I thought he was brilliant, and, you know, I was very impressed with Larry Basford. He's been a regular state attorney before, and, you know, and he did agree to do a fireside chat with his candidate that's running against him, Eric Garman. So when the show's over today, I'll reach out to Eric, and we'll get that scheduled, because that'll be powerful, you know, and we're good at that.
Well, it's always good to give people the choice, you know, inform the voters and let the voters make the choice. That's what our country's about, you know.
Well, there's been a lot of issues this week, and so so before we get into all the issues, you know, I'm like an ex-goddess now with my check mark. And so Peyton McNabb, if you forgot who she was the volleyball, playing college volleyball, and got hit by a trans athlete like almost 10 months ago, and like literally has had so many physical problems. And she went back to the doctor this week and it still wasn't good. So, I posted praying for Peyton. Thanks for standing up to these trans athletes who just want to be on the women's podium and don't belong there. They're cheating. And, 4,500 people saw my tweet, and a lot liked it because, this is ridiculous. So at least that Leah Thomas now can't compete in the Paris Olympics. So that was some news. But why do we have these trans athletes now taking over? Men, they're all men who have men bodies, right. John.
Right. You don't see any women in men's sports. I mean, I know they've got a couple of them, but the problem is when the women go to the men, I guess they're trans women, or are they trans men? I have no idea.
No, they're men that become women, and they're what's the like other way Leah's around? Like 6'3". Well, a woman becoming a man, but they're not going to be able to compete as a man. There's no hell no. We don't ever read it on that side.
Right. You don't hear that part, do you? You don't.
So they're cheaters. They're cheaters. So the other issue, and we talked about it with our state attorney, is the squatters. There's been a lot of squatter stories, and it went viral this week. He's like a Venezuelan illegal that apparently has a following, and he talks about how in Spanish how you come to America, you find a house, and you squat it. Well, in New York, a woman was on vacation, came back to New York City, went to visit her mother's apartment that was, she just was checking on it. Her mother, I guess, has passed, and 2 squatters killed her, put her in a duffel bag, John. So I put, squatters have no rights and need to be kicked out. In order to do this, you've got to have a strong sheriff where you live that also has a strong law enforcement team, standing behind him. And Freedom, Florida is blessed to have plenty of sheriffs that have your back. Yep. So isn't that the truth? I mean,
right. And there was another one that made big news in California, $1 million home.
Oh, I saw that.
across the street from where LeBron James is building a house. Okay. Across the street, these squatters from illegal alien squatters have come in and taken over this $1 million home. And the police come and say, it's a civil matter. We can't do anything about it. And, oh, by the way, it's going to take at least a year to get them out. And it's like, this is crazy.
Well, it's beyond crazy. Oh, and this was another one. I follow Libs of TikTok on X, and they posted a story. It's a female lawyer is sued after expressing that the belief that only women can menstruate, which I don't even like to say that word, dear Lord. And so I wrote, every day the left delivers more lies, because again, it falls in that trans, shiza that we're dealing with. Yep. Give me a break. Okay, so I had one that went crazy. I had two more that went crazy that I got to talk about, but go ahead.
Well, we're perverting the language is the problem, and we're accepting the perverted language of the left when it comes to this trans crap. They're not women. Dylan Mulvaney is not a woman. Period.
Oh my gosh.
He pretends to be a woman. He tries to act like a woman, but he's not. He's a man. And I don't care what you call him. Man, period.
And do what he wants to do, but stop putting it in my face. I don't care. Right. And then don't care. I don't need a trans woman to compete against real women that have worked their arses off in their fields. Okay, this is my favorite one too. This one went cray cray. So James Carville was on with Anderson Cooper and said Joe Biden's surrogates should do the wet work against Trump. So last week the word was lawfare. Yep. This week it's wet work. And so I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And it was, I guess, like when the CIA would go and kill people.
Yeah, they kill people. Assassinations.
So basically, like 102,000 people saw this clip with Anderson. And so I wrote, this lapdog needs a timeout in his doggy crate. bad boy, Carvel. And so my little ex went crazy on that one. Plus, in the clip with Anderson, it's so funny. He's wearing this scarf around his neck, and it looks like somebody's like, is he a Boy Scout? I mean, he looks like a Boy Scout gone bad. Plus, I don't like to go after people's looks because on Twitter, people always go after my red hair, and it's quite annoying. But he does look like an old woman. I don't know what's going on with his Jewish grandmother glasses that, like Kramer, if you ever watched like Seinfeld, I'm like, what is going on? That one went crazy. Oh my gosh. And then I had one more because Mr. Wonderful has been, what's his real name, Mr. Wonderful? I always forget. I'll just think of him as Mr. Wonderful. He's the financier that's Canadian from Shark Tank. And
Kevin O'Leary.
Yes.
Kevin O'Leary.
So he has gone crazy. He's on every single talk show fighting for Trump, but now he's fighting more for America in New York. So I'm trying to find my tweet. That was my biggest tweet of the week.
Well, his point is, forget Trump. Here you have the government seizing private property for no crime. They're seizing a lot of money, and they're rigging the laws to make it so that you can't fight back. What happened to our constitutional rights?
Well, okay, so actually my biggest tweet was the one about the girl at the volleyball player, but this one got tons of traction. I wrote, Mr. Wonderful's fighting so hard for America. I agree with everything he says. I hope that American people get their sanity back and save our country. And that's how I feel, John. We've got to get our sanity back to save America, and November really, 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 really matters. And then, that's the funny thing, that clip of what went down at the border when the 600 people overran the guards, and the guards were wonderful, the Air National Guard of Texas, because they didn't engage them. But several apparently got hurt. But they were very, very professional. Because you remember when they had the border guards on the horses and the whipping, and then Biden went after them. And then the true story wasn't what the narrative that the White House was pushing,
There was
John.
no whipping. It was people riding horses, and they were imagining the worst. But, the thing that got me about the thing in Texas, and one of the stories in the stack this week is Texas and the border and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided not to hear the administration's appeal. That what basically Texas has done is saying, if you're not, to the federal government, if you're not going to defend the border, we're going to defend our border. And they've deployed the Texas National Guard to this park, and I think it's 2 or 3 miles long. And they've told the federal government to go pack sand, that they're not letting the federal government in there, and that the Texas is going to stop any immigrants that come across the border at that point, and they are going to send them back to Mexico. And so there's this. So the Biden administration has been tiptoeing around this very delicately, because it's literally, Governor Abbott is telling them to flip it off the federal government, saying, pack sand, this is Texas.
Well, but the liberal press,
and the Supreme Court
they don't even want to show the clip of that, the border being
the
overrun.
The Supreme Court says Texas can do it, and they sent it back down to the lower courts for another hearing on it. And of course, the lower courts have sent another injunction against the state of Texas, which is really stupid. It's like, do you not read what the Supreme Court just said to you? So Texas has the right to protect its state. Yes, it's a federal border, but it's still the state of Texas. And the sad part, Veronica, is every one of those people that busted through, that knocked over those national, knocked them down, okay? Knocked them down, trampled on them. Every one of those people was let into this country. The Border Patrol processed them.
I am over it. And then Mexico said, we're not taking them when you bring them back. Yeah. And then DeSantis came out this week and said, well, you end up here in Florida, we're sending your ass up to Martha's Vineyard. And I mean, I feel for poor people. I'm fine to have worker permits, but we've got terrorists now. Americans are being killed. And then last week it was the Tyson story. The Tyson's chicken company fired a bunch of Americans and is hiring illegals because they have to pay them $16. instead of what I guess the going rate was way more. It's out of control. And America is becoming a third world country. And why? Why are we becoming a third world country?
Because that's what the Democrats want. The Democrats hate this country. You go back to the, first principles, okay? That's the root cause analysis of stuff, okay? Remember, Kamala Harris, she's the root cause person, okay? She's going to go get the root cause of immigration. She's going to Guatemala to find the root cause. Okay, the root cause is this. The Democrats hate this country, and they want to transform it. They hate the Constitution.
Well, this is funny.
Destroy it.
Because when I'm always doing final show prep, because we capture the show on Saturdays, I always have, Communist News Network on early in the morning. And because I'm always so excited, I can't sleep. It's like Christmas morning with you, John, when we have these amazing guests. But this morning, the president of the NAACP was on with the black anchor that does the early morning stuff. And because Florida now, like University of Florida and numerous colleges in Texas, it's happened too. The colleges have done away with the silly DEI offices, and they were wasting $5 million. For example, in Florida, $5 million was going to these DEI offices, and now it's going to go to scholarships and other things. So this, which I don't even know what his name is, the president of the NAACP, said that any college athlete that's going to go play football or basketball should not come to a school that doesn't have a DEI office, because they're not going to tell their story. They don't understand what the black plight is, and you're just putting money in the coffers of the school. Well, guess what? I don't need a DEI office, because I'm all about equality and taking care of people, not based on the color of your skin, but based on you being a human. So, yeah, you should have heard this guy. And so it was funny because the black anchor, I can't think of his name, so he asked the black anchor, well, where did you go to school? And he went to Howard University, which, oh, by the way, is a black college. So the anchor said, I didn't have these problems. And I will say I was impressed with the anchor, because normally he's quite liberal, but he said, really, you would tell somebody not to have a full ride to a college because you want them to stand up for a DEI issue. And then the president of the NAACP kept going round and round with him that, that's not what I'm saying, but that's what he was saying. And then he tried to say, well, top tier athletes can go anywhere they want. But he was talking about Alabama and UF and I think Mississippi State and, so I'm over DEI, John. We're in the military, melting pot.
Well, there are a couple of stories this week in the afterburner there about that. The best one was the Don Lemon and Elon Musk interview. It's like, what happens when a genius is interviewed by somebody that's stupid?
A twit. Yeah.
And it was amazing, because that Don Lemon was trying to make this case about DEI, okay, in medical schools where medical schools
and I'm with him.
Dropping the medical test to get into medical tests so they can get dumber people in, okay? That's basically what they're allowing, so they can get diversity.
Well, this is his quote. So we've got to share his quote. If the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lower, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam. They will make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying. And I think Don Lemon's head exploded. He couldn't handle it.
I know. And the problem was he thought he was so freaking smart, okay? So he's going to outsmart the genius, That was the part that was really dumb on his part, okay? But it's like, and Musk says, just follow the logic, Is it, if you have lower quality people and they make more mistakes, do you think somebody's not going to eventually die? And it's like, well, that's a hypothetical, And it's
he says that all of these things, the race, sex, or the orientation crap that we deal with, that it's against merit. And that's the bottom line. He says it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, what race you are, what beliefs you have. What matters is how good you are at your job. or what your skills are. And like, when I had cancer, which we'll have to talk about Princess Kate here, I wanted the best cancer doctor. I don't want somebody that was barely passing, because they're putting this concoction in you called chemo, and I need to make sure that we're getting the right one. And actually, there was different ones.
Did you care whether they were a man or a woman, gay or straight? Did any of that
black
matter?
or white? I just was trying to live my life to be here.
Right. It's like the military. The fighter pilot you want in there. You want the best fighter pilot in there. Okay, flying that airplane, because you want somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't want some DEI guy in there because it's like, hey, we need to have diversity so we can have people that look like us.
Well, the story continues in the afterburner because they had. It was a subcommittee in higher education workforce talking about the real impact of DEI on college. And so it was Dr. Stanley Goldfarb. He's a former associate dean of UPenn, ladies and gentlemen. And he said DEI is dangerous everywhere, but it's most dangerous in medical schools. And he talked about how there was a medical student who recently told his organization, do no harm, that the student had spent more time learning about pronouns than understanding kidney function.
Yep.
And what do I want him to know about kidney function? I don't care about your damn pronoun, doctor.
Right. I don't care what his bedside manner is. I don't care if he's mean and gruff, short. I don't care.
And this guy from UPenn said that
you're cutting on me, you better know what the hell you're doing.
Right. That they're less qualified students in medical schools, and they're producing less. The physicians are not good that are coming out. And he said the best way to save lives is to get DEI out of medicine now. And yes. And then, of course, like I said, you had the NAACP president on turning the narrative around this morning. And that was funny because the anchor was like, well, a black student going to school is empowerment because his family might have never been able to afford it. And, so going to college and being successful, being an athlete or getting a degree, that moves people forward no matter what color your skin is or what sex you are or if you're gay or straight. So I'm tired of it, John, and I know you are. We talk about it every week.
Right. And the problem that I feel think that gets disregarded in this whole discussion, Veronica, are the people that the minorities, the blacks, the Hispanics, whatever minority you want to identify with, the ones that go to medical school and get through on merit, okay, that are good.
Yeah. And
then people look at them and say, well, you're a DEI hire. They hired you. You only got in because you were black or you were Hispanic. That's the danger of this DEI program because it demeans their accomplishment. The people that really accomplish something, it demeans them. And to me, that I take far more offense at that because it's like you're saying you're not worth it. The only reason you're there is because whatever minority trait associated with some class of people. That's the only reason you're a doctor today. And to me, that is frighteningly bad.
Well. And so, I'm on every platform, and I sent you this one on LinkedIn. So it's a new narrative. Trump is a national security risk. And so Susan Rice warned Americans against voting for Donald Trump this week because he's a national security risk. And her quote was, Trump clearly doesn't put American interests ahead of its own. So we're deeply vulnerable to exploitation by our adversaries. And so I commented on LinkedIn, I'm getting traction everywhere, John. I don't know. The inspiration of the Lord is raining down on me. I wrote, here we go again. Let's dust off all the old players that hate Trump. And I guess Rice hasn't noticed our out-of-control border with terrorists and millions of unvetted illegals coming through. Let's not forget how we're not supporting our ally Israel, who had innocent civilians killed and continues to fight terrorists. And how about Ukraine, which is a mess dealing with darling Russia? And finally, China, who's ready to pounce on Taiwan at any moment and is responsible for I wrote the fentanyl 100K deaths every year. We need a strong leader on the world stage and a leader who loves Americans and puts us first. The election matters. So do tell, Susan Rice, who's the national security risk?
Well, what's funny about that, Veronica, is that's right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for
Right?
Radicals, right? It's like, well, we will blame you. We'll transfer onto you what we're doing. So who is the actual criminal when it comes to being bought and paid for?
It's sadly the liberals, and some guy responded to me.
The Bidens are bought and paid for by Ukraine and China.
Right.
They're the ones that are corrupt. They're the grifters, not Trump. Trump's about to become another, what is it, $3.5 billion when this
True Social went
True Social goes public
Thank you, Jesus.
next week.
Well, but
So
Monday's
Trump's
when he
gonna
owes
get
the
another
money.
$3.5 billion, and it's like, wow, look at that. He's actually making money honestly.
Well, and he needs it for Monday, but and so somebody responded to my little rant that the only thing she cares about is inflating numbers for the next California census count.
Yeah,
which is so true.
That's really what's going on. That's what's going on with the immigration stuff.
Yeah,
they sit there and they talk about they blame Republicans for something called replacement theory. It's a Democrat theory. It's not Republicans. It's a Democrat thing. And it's like, let's flood the country with immigrants. Let's put the immigrants where the population is dwindling, like California and New York and Michigan and places like that are Democrat strongholds. Excuse me.
Well, the other thing that was disgusting, and I'm trying to find the exact line that the guy used on Twitter. It was an NBC reporter, and Barron Trump turned 18 this week. And so he pretty much said, like, now it's, free for all on Barron because he's 18. And actually, I was happy that Chelsea Clinton came out and said, no, it's not. He's not in the public eye. He hasn't run for anything. He's not trying to be your president. And how disgusting that this NBC report, he quickly took down the tweet.
It was
creepy.
But
he was putting a bullseye on Barron Trump, who just turned 18. So what is wrong with people?
And what was with all the stuff about him being gay and stuff? I'm like,
I didn't see that.
Talk about projection. I mean, it was
like
really? This guy was a stalker. I mean, this guy.
Okay, well, he wrote that he was fair game, but no, I didn't.
Exactly
I didn't.
What he meant.
Okay, well, I didn't see the gay stuff.
Yeah.
He just said Barron Trump turns 18 today, and he's fair game now.
Yeah. So they could call him gay and this kind of stuff, and I mean, that's what they're trying to do. That they're making him a target, and it just shows you how disgusting these people are.
Well,
how low down, disgusting they are.
Well, and then
they're sick perverts.
The other funny story too. I don't know if you saw it, but Planet Fitness, which I have a membership that I started last year, and I haven't even gone once. And my husband's like, "Are you going to cancel that?" And I go, "No, because I'm really going to go to the gym, and it's been more than a year."
But
and
you can't cancel it.
And I haven't gone to the gym because it's $10.
They never let you cancel.
I know you can only cancel if you show up, which I swear to you, I haven't even showed up once. So, yes, that is entitlement, that I'm okay to spend $10 a month to a gym I never go to. But anyways, the Planet Fitness allowed he looked like a man into the ladies' room and was changing and had his high heels on, but clearly looked like a man, John. And
he was shaving at the sink. Come on.
So they have taken a hit. I mean.
Well, the joke I heard about that, speaking of canceling memberships, that apparently, I guess I'm not a Planet Fitness fan or member.
Well, they have my $10, but they need it because the stock plummeted $400 million.
Well, apparently it's very difficult to cancel a Planet Fitness membership.
You have to go in there. You can't do it over the phone.
and so the comment I saw was, "Hey, at least there's a good way to terminate your Planet Fitness membership is complain about men in the women's locker room."
Well, when I lived here before, I had a Planet Fitness, and I never went either. And I remember when I finally went in to cancel it. So I guess I'm charity for Planet Fitness. I don't know. I asked how many people were. It was when Planet Fitness was at the Panama City Mall. they had 7,000 people signed up, and there was not 7,000 people. So it's a good business model, because we're all like, we're going to get fit. I'll go tomorrow. But I don't need a man. You haven't
been to the new one by Kohl's, huh?
Well, I signed up and I never went back. So
okay, well, it's right by the Kohl's area.
I know it, and it was really nice actually. So I need to get my buns in there. Oh my gosh, yeah. So, anyways, they had a valuation dive of $400 million, and they went from $5.3 billion to $4.9 after this picture went viral. Hey, and we're the problem, John. We're the problem.
Yep,
go woke or go broke.
That's exactly right. Go woke or go broke.
Yeah, that's probably when you and I get our first tattoos. That'll be the one. It won't be my Hello Kitty. It'll be go woke, go broke.
So you think these people would have learned from Dylan Mulvaney? You think
well,
they would have learned from Disney?
It says in the story that a 12-year-old girl was in the dressing room, and so she was very distraught. And I would be too, because I don't need to see, a man shaving with boobs bolted on.
Right. It's disgusting.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
And it doesn't go the other way. You don't see women going in the men's room, do you?
No, because the men would probably beat them up.
You like cheering.
Wasn't it in A Few Good Men? I love that movie. Like, Jack Nicholson's was great. Tom Cruise is great, and they're gonna Code Red him. I think, was it called Code Red? When they beat up. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably, well, especially here in the Panhandle, you'd be Code Red by the Southern boy with a mullet and his big old truck out in the parking lot. So, we
don't play that way.
That's what I do love living here in the Panhandle, because there is a safety component. I feel comfort now when I see a guy in his pickup and it's 12 feet off the ground, and he's got his mullet, and he's got his shotgun in there, and he's got his trucker hat on. I don't know. I know that if I broke down, which I have, they stop and they try to help you, John. It's terrifically sweet. So,
and there's places in this country you wouldn't want people to stop and help you, because they're probably going to rob you, and it's a sad commentary on our country that. But it's back to if New York wants to be liberal, fine. All the Republicans or people that don't want to put up with that crap, move to Pennsylvania. I wouldn't say move to New Jersey, but
well, but back to Mr. Wonderful. All the sound bites I've seen of him. When you think of America, you think of the Big Apple and the Wall Street and the financial district and where you go to make it, and where the legal immigrants came through Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. Yep. And it's the beacon of Americana, right? And it, I don't know, that Letitia James is bringing us down. And then, of course, I follow her on X, and I don't know why these liberals are on X, and it's so painful to follow these people. Oh my gosh. Because what did she have on this week? Of course, I will always fight for women and, reproductive rights, and it's baby killing. And it's sort of like I follow Louise, what's it? It was Elaine on Seinfeld. She got a funny name. She's worth a ton of money because her dad was a billionaire, and she's so liberal. And all they care about is, you have $1 billion in your bank account is killing babies. That's all these people care about. Not who are these people coming through the border that are might kill you or I, or squat in your house and then put you in a duffel bag, John.
Well, these are people that don't have everyday problems like they don't have to figure out. They don't have to go to work. They don't have to, they have people that do stuff for them, and it's a completely different lifestyle, and they can't relate to everyday people in this country. That's why they call it flyover country. You got these people in New York, people in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland. These people are all they're all privileged. They got their white privilege. Okay, let's use their.
Well,
word.
I'm privileged because I have a $10 Planet Fitness membership that now I need to cancel because I gave up Target based on
maybe that's purple privilege. I don't.
Well,
know.
Yeah, it's purple, and then they just charge, because once a year they charge $50. So my husband was like, because I spend money fiscally responsibly, but I don't pay the bills. And so my husband was like, what's this $50 charge from Planet Fitness? And I was like, oh, that's the once a year. I'm going tomorrow. I promise. So anyways, yeah, well now, damn it, I'm going to have to cancel. I gave up Target, and I had the withdrawal symptoms of giving up Target because I enjoyed the Magnolia line by Joanna Gaines. They always had all the makeup, and it was so nice. But I've had to dig deep because if we don't fight these people, with our bank account, and even if you have a small bank account, they lost all my money. That's where I'd go buy shampoo and makeup and, soda.
And they're at the end of the day, they're a business. And when they lose money, then they have to change their business. Okay. Look at Anheuser-Busch there with the Bud Light thing. They fired people. Okay.
Well, and now they've gone to the extreme because they have that comedian Shane, and he's very insensitive because he tells gay jokes and the mentally disabled jokes. So they've gone now too far over. They didn't pick the right guy, but they lost so many of their people, which are the white guy with the beer belly that probably has a blue collar job, because if you ever go to a gas station, they're all walking out with 24 packs of Bud Light.
But you look at all these major companies have all become so woke, and it's not just the DEI, it's the ESG, the environmental social goals.
Just in though, breaking news, exclusive. We're talking about all this. Jeff Bezos' ex-wife giving most of the $640 million donations to, get this, John, just in on my phone, extreme left groups boosting migrant criminals and trans athletes. What the F over? What? She'll provide, let's see, Scott will provide 67 migrant advocacy organizations a combined whopping $122 million for legal aid and other assistance, according to this group. What?
And don't forget the last election, Bezos spent $400 million.
Okay, but there's more.
On Democrat get out the vote efforts.
Her other awards include $117 million to 67 prisoner advocacy groups and other organizations helping jailbirds and ex-cons, and $72 million to 43 groups promoting gender identity, sexual orientation, and LGBTQ causes, such as championing the rights of biological boys who identify as transgender girls to compete in female sports. What is wrong with this woman? She also earmarked $18 million to 10 groups pushing clean energy. I'm sorry, this woman's stupid. She's so stupid.
Well, the thing that represents, Veronica, is the type of people in big tech. That's who they are. Okay, across the board. This is who. Set Elon Musk aside. Okay, the rest of them, they're all radical leftists. Google is overrun with radical leftists, and the problem with this is it affects the products they make. Google search is being pervasively transformed into this leftist.
Right, because if you go searching for stuff, it doesn't always pop up. And right. A clear example was the last time Congressman Gates was on, and that was last year. He had just been cleared of the sexual whatever offenses, and so I was doing my last-minute show prep, and when I typed it in, guess what? I had to work to find the story that he had been cleared, John. I had to work.
Yep.
So it goes on.
And the AI thing is just as bad because, the Google Gemini AI, they pulled it, that's the one that was doing when you type in, give me a picture of the Pope, it came back with a black Pope, or you typed in, give me a, 1940s German soldier, and it came back with black Nazis, which was insane. And then you type in anything about a white person, and it says, I'm sorry, I can't generate an image of a white person because that's racist, and people are like, oh my God, this is shocking. It's like, no, it shouldn't be shocking. that's the people that are writing the programming. The people that are doing the algorithms and the code for this are leftists, and that's the way they think, and that's what they're putting in. And the problem is, Veronica, is you and I end up relying, and at least we're aware of what's going on. Think of the millions of people that are not aware of what's going on.
Well, most people I know are not aware, and they think I'm the radical. And you know what? I'm not the radical. And so it has a little slide here of the 640 million, 72 million to LGBTQ rights, including transgender athletes. No, I'm sorry. These are men that have boobs bolted on, and they can be a transgender. I don't care. I love Caitlyn Jenner, and Caitlyn Jenner is against this. So what is wrong with this woman? Right. And I want to take our show national. We need somebody, a billionaire or millionaire, to fund us to do that. And this is the crap.
To counter these people.
This is the crap that they're funding. This is the crap, and then criminals and illegal migrants, which I'm happy for them to come through legally. And I say this every week to you. My family's legal immigrants that came through, worked hard, to make it in life. So I just
and the legal
I'm on my
immigrants,
soapbox.
The ones that are legal are the ones that are tend to be the most radical about wanting this thing stopped.
Well,
but,
normal people.
One of the stories,
yeah,
right. But it's becoming where we give the illegals all these, quote, rights. And one of the stories this week, illegal immigrant can carry guns, according to a federal judge.
Oh, I sent you like 12 articles.
Oh, my God.
Because if you or I go in to buy, I have a concealed carry, so I can walk out with a gun because I've already been vetted, ladies and gentlemen. I turned in my DD-214 as a veteran, and, I've had training, but you never have enough training. We still need to go to the range, because I'm bullseye and I want to remain bullseye.
That's right.
But
muscle memory.
I know, and I've definitely been concealed. Concealed carry more lately because it's scary out there.
I know, but where does a federal judge get off giving an illegal immigrant? Okay, and the comment was, well, they haven't otherwise broken the law, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're an illegal alien. They're in this country.
I don't know who you are.
They broke the law. I mean, the law is you shouldn't be here. Yeah. And that should be automatic saying, right, you are a criminal because you broke the law. You're awaiting a hearing, right? They get assigned a hearing date, and you're awaiting a hearing to see whether you should be deported or not. So to sit there and say, well, you've got a constitutional right the same as a U.S. citizen to carry a gun is incredible. How you can make that jump.
And who was the judge? A radical Obama appointee judge.
Right.
So
and it's like we are fighting this war on so many fronts. And no,
it's literally exhausting, John. Every day I wake up and I'm like, what's it going to be? And this week it was that, and no, it's crazy.
It kind of goes to our conversation with Larry Basford here. It's like I keep wondering, when are the adults going to show up and fix this? Okay,
I don't know.
We've got clowns in Congress, we got clowns in the judiciary, we've got clowns for prosecutors. When is somebody going to walk in and say, enough's enough? That's not the way our Constitution's written.
Well, you and I are saying it every week. We say enough is enough because, someday I'm going to have grandchildren. Thank you. I've raised my children. They have great moral compasses. But raising children is hard these days. And then when you have all of these crazy people pushing these agendas, where's the America First agenda and, being a conservative and faith and God and family values and having a home that has a mom and a dad? Where is that? Nobody wants to push that anymore.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with America First. You talk about, the Democrats talk about MAGA, like we're some kind of creepy disease or something there. And it's like, what's wrong with Make America Great Again? What's wrong with putting our country
America being great
first?
Every day is my question.
And it's because of something called American exceptionalism, and they don't like it. They don't like that America can be better than the rest of the world and set the example.
Somebody has to be the leader. Why I always
Right.
want to be number one in everything I do. I'm not trying to slide in to be the last person. Granted, we know our abilities sometimes. And when I was on the tennis team in high school, I knew I was going to be the last one on the ladder because I knew my abilities. But that didn't stop me from trying to be the number one.
Right.
I was trying.
And there was nothing wrong with that. But it's back to the shining city on the hill, the beacon that Reagan talked about. America has to be first in order to be that shining city. Yeah. If we're not first, then we're not the shining city.
And New York. And so what is New York going to be? It's going to be...
It's a hellhole. It's a hellhole.
Right.
But until it gets bad enough to where the people of New York...
But it's going to be too late when... It might be too late that we can't ever get it back.
Maybe. The problem with too late is can you take the steps necessary to fix it?
Well, that's what I'm worried about. And you sent in the afterburners...
That means putting people in jail, and that means deporting people that shouldn't be here. It means following the law. And
on that note...
Rid of Letitia James.
You've got... you sent the story in the Afterburner about the exit polls after Trump endorsed Bernie Moreno's big win.
Yes.
Because he wasn't slated to win. Trump endorsed him. They tried to take him out. But when people were exiting, the voters said that immigration is their top concern. And 73% of Americans said that illegal immigrants who are living in the U.S. should be deported. I was at my church this week, and so some ladies know I'm political, so they were talking with me. And these are, church-going Catholic women, and they were concerned about what's happening at our border because we don't know who you are, and if you're a criminal let out of a Venezuelan prisoner, what's going to stop you from killing me? So it's weighing on people's minds now that we want to help poor people and do the right thing. But I don't, could you imagine if we let everybody on death row out and now they're running around America and we don't know who you are and, killers are going to kill again.
Right. And exactly right. And if there's no punishment, if there's no consequences for behavior, how do you change behavior if there's no consequences? If you walk into a store and steal the toothpaste out of the thing there and then walk out the door and don't pay for it. And then you come back again and you didn't get arrested because, the police don't care. The prosecutors don't care. And you come back and the store's like, well, there's two consequences. There's no toothpaste because everybody's stolen it all, or the store locks the toothpaste up behind it.
And I lived that in New York visiting my children in a nice, it was the Upper East Side, nice area. Yep. Everything was nice. And every single damn piece of candy was locked. And it was freaking annoying because now you have to wait. And, stores are undermanned. So now you can't just be a drive-by and go in and go out and buy it.
Right.
No.
And they've got stores that are limiting how many people they'll let in the store because of the number of clerks they have. And they can't watch everybody. So they'll only let 2 or 3 people in the store at a time to serve them. And it gets back to this inefficiency, economic inefficiency, which is something it's a real burr under my rear end. We misallocate resources. That's the thing. That's the frightening part.
Well, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife is misallocating her resources, and we'd like her to allocate them to Veronica Live so we can go national with the staff.
I don't really care. I'd like her to allocate some to us. But it's her money. It's private money. What the bad part is when the government is doing it, and Biden's budget $7.3 trillion. I'm like, oh, how can you even imagine that?
Well, did you see what some of the things that it was going towards?
Yeah, I was, and I was frightened. It was
so let me, because Jesse Waters listed it on his Twitter, and it is literally freaking scandalous. It is I don't know. It's just rough. So it was $850K for a gay senior home. Why is that coming out of the government? Why isn't that privately funded?
Yep.
$15 million to pay for Egyptians' college tuitions. What the hell is that? What the hell is that, John? Who are these people? And that's like paying for them, I guess, in Egypt. Okay, why? $400K for a gay activist group to teach elementary kids about being trans. Okay, I have a problem with that. $500K for a DEI zoo. I don't even know what the hell that is. $400K for a group to give clothes to teens to help them hide their gender. I mean, this is sick.
It is.
And he had 2.2 million views on that. You know, I don't understand it anymore. And so I wrote, this pork needs to be burned. I don't support any of this garbage. Secure the border and vote in term limits for these twits. I didn't really get much traction on that because I was late to the game.
At a 7.3 trillion, they're increasing the defense budget 1%. Okay, 1%, which is in real terms with the inflation, that's actually a cut. Okay, and it's so we're spending more on all this social crap, and then we have the EV mandate, the electric vehicle mandate this week.
Right.
When did Congress pass a law that says the car makers can only sell EVs? Somehow the EPA is saying.
And when I saw that story, where are we going to plug them all in? Where are we going to plug them all in, John? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You can't go, I think, but 350 miles in an EV. As
long as it's not cold. When it gets cold, then you can't go even hardly any of that. You know, I laugh at these trucks. The Ford Lightning. If you tow something with the Ford Lightning, like a boat, for instance, right?
Which that's what I'd be doing.
Right. 75-mile range if you tow a boat with it.
Oh, my God.
You believe that? 75 miles, and then you got to stop and charge something. And it's like, you people don't understand these machines, how they work, you know, and what energy and power is.
Well, there was a cute meme. Everybody knows Bart Simpson, and like when that show was on, he used to write. He'd always in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd write on the board. And so the meme is he's writing, "Government is the enemy." And I think Bart Simpson has it right.
He's right on this one.
Well, and then did you see the story too? This was also literally scandalous. It was a general officer talking about all the drones coming over the border because the cartels are using them to traffic the people to see where our good guys are on the border. And I think it was like 1,000 drones a day, or it was some outrageous number. And like, oh my God, what is secure, John? What is secure?
Nothing, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know, it's like now if it's Ukraine, they care in Ukraine. You know, if it's, you know, it's like well, let's build a fence. You know, it's like no, we can't build fences, but yet we'll give hundreds of millions of dollars to Egypt to build a fence.
Okay, 15 million to Egypt so that they can go to college. Why am I paying for that?
That's just one piece. But we're also paying for a fence for Egypt to build a fence to keep the people from Gaza going into Egypt.
Yeah.
That's okay to build a fence for that, but we can't build a fence to keep these people out, you know, from our country.
I mean, and this is just 1 week of storylines. Okay, so it's more than 1,000 drones per month are crossing into U.S. airspace near the border, said this top general. I'm scandalized. I can't even get the words out. I'm so scandalized by this.
Why? I mean, it makes sense, you know, if you want to put a drone up and go see where the Border Patrol's at or not at, you know. I mean, you know, nobody cares, Veronica. Nobody cares.
Well, why are you and I the only ones that care?
Well, until we get off our butt and vote these people out, vote in people like Cameron Hamilton, you know, that Navy SEAL kick-ass, take names, you know, kick-ass, take names, type people in there that are going to say, we're done with this, you know, and the problem is we got to get enough votes in there. We've got to get rid of these rhino Republicans. You know, I think I heard something. I think it was Dan Bongino saying there are Republicans that are really Democrats, but there are no Democrats that are Republicans, and he's absolutely right about that. We've got Republicans that seem to have no problem. You know, the rhinos have no problem aiding and abetting the Democrats in destroying this country, and we've got to vote these people out. You know, the alternative is not good. And it's going to descend into chaos. The Democrats want the chaos. Obama gave the game away, okay? He said our founding fathers got the Constitution wrong because it says what the government can't do, not what it should do. And that's a completely different context of how government should be involved in your life. And that's why we are in a post-constitutional government. $7.3 trillion, okay? That's 1/3 of the U.S. economy. 1/3 is the federal government, just the federal government budget, which includes $2 trillion or almost $3 trillion in money they're going to print that we don't have to increase the national debt. That's the game.
And they're pushing around a dementia president, you know. So another story, I don't know if you saw this one. This one kind of broke too yesterday. Two stories. The least important one, Candace Owen, from Daily Wire. Yeah. She didn't support Israel. She doesn't think we should be giving them money, and now she's leaving the Daily Wire. And she's an African American that has always been out there. People just adore her. I mean, there was so much support for her on her X platform. I was looking at that last night, but she doesn't believe in Israel, and which I'm just shocked. And Ben Shapiro, I guess, runs Daily Wire, who's also has his own show and is very famous. He had nothing for her. But how can you not support Israel? And that was what was shocking to me, was looking through her X. Like, oh, we stand with you, Candace. We stand with you. Well, what about standing with Israel? They're out there, by themselves, surrounded by all these people that don't want them there.
Well, everybody's got their own beliefs, and some people you can line up with 75% of the stuff, and then the other 25% you got to decide what you want to do with it. I agree with Candace Owens on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with her on the Israel position.
Yeah. And I'm okay if people have, they can believe one way or the other and still be a conservative. But, is she being fired for this one statement? And it's sort of what they're saying, So I don't know. Because
it's a private business and they can choose who associates with them or not. And if you want to take, I think we had a story a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that we covered it, but it was about Neil Young. I don't know if you remember him. He was all upset. He had his music on Spotify.
Yeah.
And he was all upset at Joe Rogan, so he pulled his music off Spotify and said until Spotify canned Joe Rogan, he wouldn't allow
who Joe Rogan makes $100 million a year with his talk show. Right. He's the number one talk show host in the right. world.
So here, liberal Neil Young thinks he's gonna blackmail, coerce, whatever, Spotify into dumping Joe Rogan, so that people could listen to Neil Young's music on Spotify. He lost that, and now all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, he's decided to put his music back on Spotify.
Aww,
even though Joe Rogan
I don't even like his music.
I don't either, but Rogan has an even bigger audience now. So the whole crap load of stuff that he was going through, about standing up for his principles is just a bunch of garbage, because at the end of the day, he wants the money. Rule number one, want to know the truth and anything about politics, follow the money. And that's what it always comes down to with these people, is follow the money.
Well, so anyways, I thought that was very interesting, but actually the number one story ended up breaking yesterday afternoon, and I was running around Destin, and oh, by the way, my internet on my phone wouldn't work out over in that world, and I was so ticked, so I had to 911 my friend, because I saw the news story that broke yesterday, and the whole world was talking about it, that Princess Kate revealed that she is battling cancer at the age of 42, and she's undergoing preventative chemotherapy, she said. And so, it just all of that came flooding back to me, because she said, I guess everybody went after her. Remember last week we were joking about it. Where's Kate Middleton? And I said, well, hopefully it's nothing major, because she had the stomach surgery, and after the stomach surgery, when they assessed what they took out, there was cancer there. And so now she's doing chemo, and she released this video yesterday. It's like 2 minutes long. She's sitting by herself. You hear birds chirping, flowers around her. Her kids have just started Easter break, and her kids are little. They're little munchkins. And she talked about, having to tell her children, and they needed some privacy. And it all came flooding back because, when I was diagnosed with cancer, my daughter was a senior in high school 6 years ago, and I didn't want to tell her. It was homecoming week, her birthday, and I had to go off to the Mayo, and I was trying to just sneak off, and my one friend here was like, "You have to tell her, you can't leave," and because that's going to be so weird. And oh my gosh, I thought it hurt so bad yesterday, just knowing that when you have to tell your children, it doesn't matter what age they are, because my daughter was like, "Oh my gosh, are you going to die?" She was crying, and then I had to tell my son, and and you're just you're a deer in headlights in the beginning, and she started chemo already, it says, and you could tell yesterday she was wearing a wig, because I've worn 12 of them, because I had my Sophia Loren wig, my Pulp Fiction wig, my Jennifer Aniston wig. I had them all, but my heart hurt so bad yesterday, and and it was so funny because Prince Charles also is going through prostate cancer treatment, and what a void. John, all of a sudden we've lost Queen Elizabeth, and then two of your number one royals, Charles and Kate, are having to deal with this right now. And what it really told me too is it doesn't matter if the whole world knows who you are, and you're as rich as can be. Cancer can impact anyone at any time, and hurt your family. It hurts your heart. So
the
pain.
The speculation was getting stupid, and I guess if I had to, but and I haven't had any cancer, thank goodness. But one thing I found interesting was her comment that it took her some time for it, I guess, to register, to deal with it, whatever.
You're in shock,
and you
you're
can probably
literally in shock.
Speak to that much better, What when they say you've got cancer, I mean, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, and all these thoughts.
Well, my story's so funny is because I had a perfect mammogram. 3 weeks later, I found a lump. I get in real quick. The next day, I got the biopsy. That Friday, I got it all happened like Monday, Tuesday. Friday, I get the call, Mrs. Kemeny, we need you to come to the office. So I kind of knew, and of course, my husband was out of town, so I brought my friend with me. And we're in seeing my nurse practitioner that I'd seen for 5, plus years living here, whatever it was. And she's like, "You have breast cancer." And you're kind of like, huh? And then my friend, who, everybody's in shock. She's like, "Is she going to die?" So now I laugh at this. But at the time, in that entire day,
you weren't laughing.
I couldn't breathe. I don't. The comment happened, and that was the thing too, the stupid things people say along the way. "Oh, my aunt died of breast cancer." I'm like, and you're in treatment. You're like, I don't need to hear this, Shiza. Yep. But you're so in shock initially, you, and then your husband, and then you have to tell your children, and mine were older, and they, it stops everybody in their tracks, because and then you're trying to figure out treatments, and my hair is going to fall out, and just all of it. So my heart ached yesterday, because we all love, everybody wants to be a queen and a princess, and it was funny too, because Prince Harry and Meghan Markle didn't know anything about it, because apparently the trust had been broken, and so they heard about it in the press. But they're not welcome back, and so that also hurt my heart, because Princess Diana, as a fanatic of following royalty my entire life, that her two sons aren't together, and now England, like they're Kim Kardashians 1 and 2 are have cancer, John. It's so sad. So hopefully, and I don't know, they've had all these doctors on CNN and Fox News and on all these radio shows, and because we really don't know what kind of cancer it is. Is it colon cancer? Is it ovarian cancer? Stomach cancer?
Well, same thing for the surgery. All they'll say is abdominal surgery. They won't say what it was, and and not that it's not important to me. It doesn't. The fact that she's got to deal with this is, it's something you have to deal with on your own. I mean,
and you need time. It doesn't matter if
right.
you're in the public eye. You need some time to take it in internally, because I've told this to people over and over and over again. You can cut me open, do surgery, give me stitches, because I had 2 lumpectomies. My gallbladder went out. I had a port put in. I never had surgeries before. All of a sudden, you're seeing a doctor nonstop. And then you're going through, I did chemo for 12 weeks and my hair fell out, and then more immunotherapies and the radiation. But the bottom line was you could do all that to me and I was still kicking. And, but it's a mental game, and you have to deal with it first internally. And cancer's a mental game more than it is the whole cut me open crap.
Right. You gotta have the will to live, and that comes from inside. That's not outside.
And especially when children are involved, you really, I wish her the best, and we're all praying for her. But I do hope that everybody just takes it, that it was the one time I stopped working because I knew that I had to fight for me so that I could be there for the people that I love, to eventually continue being a mother and a grandmother and a wife and all of that. So she's taking her tactical pause, and I hope the press will allow that to happen.
Wouldn't that be so nice, just to lay off and not have to make the story, not make it about anything. Just leave her alone for a while. But
well, what else is in the stack that you want to talk about? You always, we always got to talk about the cartoons you send me.
Well, I wanted to talk about the funny story of the week, and that was
which one did you love the most?
the funny story was a Harvard probe that finds the honesty researcher is engaged in scientific misconduct. That one was so funny.
Harvard is an absolute wreck. They actually need me to come in and be the president. I think they need a strong military officer to kick some ass.
But it was so funny. The story was about this researcher who does research on why people are honest or not honest, and apparently she was fabricating research evidence.
I mean, we can't even make this stuff up, John. You're at Harvard.
Right, and to top it off, Harvard won't fire her.
Oh my gosh! Well, they didn't fire Dr. Gay, so
I know. So it's like, what does it take to get fired?
Which I meant to. I'll Google it while you're talking about this story. I wanted to see who she is. So her name is Francesca Gino. So let's see what Francesca Gino looks like. Why they won't fire her? Because she might have green hair. Let's see who she is. Oh, here we go. Francesca Gino. Oh, she did go to Harvard. No, she's a white woman, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Wow, she's 46. Yeah, quick facts about her. She's an award-winning expert on the psychology of organizations, and she studies how people can have more productive, creative, and fulfilling lives. And I guess I forgot, and how to BS your way through some investigation or report.
But anyway, so they've retracted one of her 4 papers that had this fraudulent data in it, and I guess there's some debate about them retracting the other 3. So but putting her on unpaid leave while taking steps to terminate her is.
Well, here's her bio. Get this. She's an award-winning researcher and it says here that she's been honored as one of the world's top 40 business professors under 40, John, and one of the world's 50 most influential management thinkers by Thinkers 50, and she's won numerous awards for her teaching. So here we go. It's all BS. And she's been on all these programs.
Well, she claims it was an honest error, and it's like...
Oh, it's all honest.
And this committee, and what amazed me was how long, 1,300-page investigative report, 1,300 pages of report for this investigation. It took them years to do this, three or 4 years to do this.
I mean, don't you want honest professors so you don't have to waste money on that?
Right, and their conclusion was that Gino edited observations in ways that made the results fit the hypothesis, which is fraud. she made up the results to fit her ideas, and it's like,
gosh, what is wrong with these people? Why can't they see? And this is a white woman, so you can't even really go down the, that we're racist and, so this is a white, it's her picture. She's clearly white. She's clearly white.
Right.
So.
But why is Harvard even delaying firing her? She should have been fired immediately and completely discredited in the education community. But, somebody will herald her as some kind of hero, I'm sure.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well,
anyway, that was a funny story of the week. So, stupid stories, but on to cartoons.
Yes. Well, we've got this one. Oh, well, I love this one because this has definitely happened because last week we know that the RNC put Laura Trump in and she's cleaning house and It's a picture of Trump in a doorway and over the doorway it has RNC. And then Trump is kicking a rhino in the ass that's flying through the air with his Never Trump sign. Fly, baby, fly. So don't you feel that the RNC, we're going to get it back in order? I honestly feel that we're not going to be taking high-end trips and paying for flowers and hair and nails.
Absolutely. I read the transcript of Laura Trump's speech that she gave this week. It was dead on, We need to deal with the hand we're dealt on voting, okay? Early voting means we have to live with early voting. Mail-in voting with fraud, despite the fact there's fraud, that's the hand we're dealt. We have to deal with it. And we need to be better at doing it than the Democrats are.
Talk about what happened to you in the mail-in voting, since you are still dual house and a resident of Florida.
Well, I was up here at Northcom and at the farm here, and so we called Mark Anderson and had our mail-in ballots mailed to Georgia, and they arrived on Thursday, 2 days after the primary election. Thank goodness it was only a primary election. First election we haven't voted on in at least 20 years, okay, which really made me mad.
How dare you, John?
I was like,
because
really,
you and I
really
dream about elections.
But it turns out, Mark got it mailed on time, but the post office, Atlanta, apparently opened up a new super center post office processing place that consolidated 3 other processing centers into one big one. 500 of the postal employees decided they weren't moving to the new place. So they're calling in sick. So this new super processing center, like 1 million square feet of mail processing, is short 400 to 500 people a day. I talked to the postmaster here.
But how convenient it's during an election time.
Well, I didn't get any mail for 5 days.
But this scares me in that, John, think if they try this stunt in November and George Soros starts giving people money.
Well, what I found out some more about that, Veronica, is this is not an uncommon problem. The post office is opening these new super processing centers all over the country, and these kind of delays are not unusual. 2 weeks for a first-class letter to go from Panama City to Atlanta. 2 weeks.
Oh, come on.
That is insane. There's something really broke here, and people need to understand this. We've got a mail ballot election. What's going to happen? I already see it coming. They're going to start suing they're going to say the post office can't deliver these ballots in time for the election. So we have to extend the deadline.
George Soros goes around and starts giving people $500 to stay home, and you get this 2-week backlog.
But I guarantee you're going to start seeing the Democrat Party start suing in court to extend these deadlines for mail-in ballots because of the post office's process.
Well, I see it the other way. Let's send them out earlier, because I know, like when I lived overseas and would get the ballot, I would often get postcards, the campaign postcards a month later because they were sent via media mail. And that took a long time, and they would send them out too late. So I've advised and worked with a lot of candidates, and I'm like, you want to go after that military vote, but you need to back it up way in advance to get your postcard.
Well, the problem is, Veronica, it's not mailing it to me and getting it. It's mailing it back, and apparently from what the postmaster is saying.
Okay.
People are upset because they're mailing in their bills, their electric bill, their water bill, and it's being the bills are being delayed getting to the vendors by 2 to 3 weeks. So these people are getting hit with late penalties, and they're cutting off their electricity and stuff because the post office is so screwed up.
Well, and one other comment. So I just pulled up bayvotes.org because we had the primary Tuesday. We have 69,600 plus registered voters, and they only got 13,000 of us that came out to vote, and that's a 18.77, almost 19% voted. I mean, that's just freaking pathetic.
Yep.
And then when you do the breakdown, they had 88% voted for here in Bay County for Trump. Then 7% voted for lovely Nikki Haley, barf. And then Ron DeSantis got almost 4% of the vote. And then there was other people, I don't even know, who Ryan Brinkley, I don't even know who that was. There's a bunch of extra people, which that was frustrating to me too, is why can't we get this? A lot of these people had dropped out a long time ago. Chris Christie was on there. Didn't he drop out in like December? Or November, and he was still on the damn ballot? Give me a break.
Well, that's because the rules in Florida, they paid I think it's $25,000 to the Republican Party of Florida. That's how you get ballot access. You have to pay $25,000 and show up at the Sunshine Summit. 54
people, dumbasses in Bay County, voted for Chris Christie.
Of
I'm
course.
Like, really? And Asa Hutchinson, 7? Ramaswamy got 36, so Chris Christie beat him.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you the voters aren't always that smart.
Yeah.
Thank God you don't have to take an intelligence test.
Well, and one more story, and I think I sent it to you because I can't believe we cannot. The Ziegler story, our former chairman and his wife, who is still a
school board member in Sarasota County.
It's the story that keeps on giving that we cannot get over. So this week it's everywhere. Christian and Bridget Ziegler fight to prevent records from being released about their sexcapades. And so once again, we have to read about, like, one of the stories was very graphic on what went down. And
I agree with them on this story. And the part of the story that the sexcapade part, I don't care about. That's already public and all that stuff. The part that that's barely mentioned is the fact that they seized Christian's cell phone. And they not only went through the sexcapade stuff, they went through everything. So there's a lot of stuff in there that has no business being made public. It has nothing to do with the case. It's his information. It's his private information. And other than voyeurism,
Oh, and it had
the
some of the
Democrats.
text to his wife, about the woman. So this was an ongoing thing with these sick individuals.
Right.
And the only reason I don't want to, and there was a lot in the one story. I only read the one story that I sent you because somebody sent it to me. Again, they have 3 young daughters, and if this gets out there, because the one story was very graphic,
right?
I mean, this is forever. Those 3 children are going to be exposed to this. The world. I don't want to know anymore. We know what they did.
Right, but the fact is, there's no criminal charges. So what right does the public have to know if there's no criminal charges?
Well, the story I sent you, definitely the woman was like having mental issues, was not stable, was drinking, but they all had sex before together. So, she was a player, but she definitely was not stable, because that was one of the things he texted, or the wife texted about her.
Well, one of them said, "Well, I think we need to find a new partner or something."
Yeah,
I thought this is really weird. but the fact
things I don't want to know, but it's the story that won't go away because it broke. Right. It broke at I was at my, going to my husband's Christmas party, November 30th, and I keep have this story. It's gone global. All the stories are global again, and then of course you read the comments and they're like, "Oh, those Republicans," because that's the thing. We're tied in now with the Zieglers, who didn't. couldn't keep their sex life private, and everybody thinks now that, you know, we're two-faced because these people didn't represent us and were pretending to represent us.
Right, but I'll go back. They still have rights. They're still citizens. There's no criminal charges against them.
Yeah, and why aren't there at this point? You know what I'm saying? After talking to our state attorney.
Why are there none? Because there's no criminal activity.
Well, that's what I'm...
Everything that woman said, she was put up to making the charges by, I think it was her sister or a friend of hers that got wind of it.
Her sister. It was a sister.
Who's a liberal. Okay, so she basically outed her. And I'm trying to remember.
Well, she might have been paid.
Oh, right,
yeah, because this week that the other woman that took on Kavanaugh has a book, and she's apparently had a facelift and looks like $1 million, and she's
Christina
trying.
Ballsy Ford, yeah. It's but the fact is, the evidence that Christian gave them, the video that he took, showed it was 100% consensual on her part.
It should have been done at that point, I think.
Right. It's like there's no rape charge here, okay? It's
Thank God he had the video. Oh, my gosh.
Exactly. Because otherwise it's a he said, she said kind of thing. So it's like, okay, so the video exonerated him. It's not criminal. Now it's private. So the government has seized his stuff. So what right does a newspaper or anybody else have to go into Christian Ziegler's cell phone and look at his text messages? Look at if he does online banking. They want everything on that cell phone that the police downloaded. Everything, not related to the story.
Well, and the story I sent you, he was Googling, like, you know, charges being dropped and blah blah blah. So everything was on there. But yes, but it's the story that won't go away. Right. And I'm with you. Now we have a sex video that confirms it was consensual because nobody was screaming and she was obviously participating. Yep. So let's be done with it. And going back to the Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the accuser returns with a memoir, Christine Blasey Ford. She re-enters the spotlight, and she writes, most memoirs are the story behind a life. This is the life behind a story. So begins One Way Back by Christine Blasey Ford. Well, where's her doctor? Remember, wasn't she a doctor? You know, because it was BS. It was BS. And this week I listened to, I love him, Guy Benson, from Fox News. And then he had Molly, what's her name? She's a bigwig on one of those websites. Hemingway? Hemingway? It starts with an H. And so she actually wrote a book
I think she writes for the Federalist.
Yes. Oh, she's awesome. Yeah. I love her. So Molly had written a book supporting Kavanaugh a long time ago with a co-author, and she was talking about, she wrote the book because it was so horrific what Kavanaugh had been through. The woman couldn't remember the date, the time, the place. Her family came out and said that it wasn't true. Yeah. Then they tried to corner this woman to support it, and they were going to bribe her with, like, she used drugs when she was young, and she, you know, finally came out and said it wasn't true. So how does this woman, you know, come out now with this book, and now she looks all great, like she even had a freaking facelift, John?
I'm sure that was all part of the marketing for the book, you know. I mean, it's just back to follow the money. It's about the money, okay? You know, and she gets on The View, and apparently, I guess there were some men in the audience that didn't applaud her, and I guess some of the View idiots were criticizing the men in the audience for not applauding.
Well, because it's BS. It's
right.
Like they talked to all of his friends, and then the Georgetown prep school that he went to. You know, I graduated from Mount Vernon High School there, and I went on like one of the, like I got invited to like a prom kind of thing at the prep school, and they were all nice Catholic boys. It was like a clean cut affair. Like, you know, they were all kind of rich kids, I will say, because their parents had to pay big tuition, but. And this was like the era of when I went to this like dance, and it was nice. I remember it was a nice Christian. The group were nice. Yeah, they were prep school boys, but they were all nice because it was a Catholic school. So
and they had something called discipline, and if they got in trouble,
oh my gosh, the tie, the jacket, you know, all of that. And so here she comes now. They're dragging her out. Oh my gosh, she looks like $1 million in this picture. Her hair's all blonde and curled, and she has makeup, and because as you remember, she hated flying supposedly. So it's just
it's the left, and it's the Anita Hill thing. Anita Hill tried to lodge charges against Clarence Thomas during his hearing.
But how many times has this happened to men? Poor men. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I am not a fan. I loved Christian before all this happened. He came on the show. I've been friendly with him for 10 years. Yeah. And I pray for his family, but he obviously doesn't live my lifestyle. And when people don't do the way I live life, I don't want you in my circle. But thank God he videotaped that. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
his sexcapade.
It's sad that you have to think that way, So, and again, I don't know
Sign
what
a
his
consent
expectations
form
were,
with an NDA.
But do you have to go to the extreme of Mike Pence, where you don't go anywhere without your wife? You're never
I've
in a
recently
room alone
learned
with a woman
about
without your
his
wife,
and I just had a discussion with somebody last week, and I think I know why his wife was that way. She was actually married to somebody else. Did you know this?
No.
She married a guy that was in medical school, and they were married for like 1 or 2 years, and then they got a divorce. And so I thought she was this, perfect individual, and there was no reason to divorce that guy, and he ended up being a doctor. So I'm wondering if that all played into it. So isn't that funny? I'm who's always immersed in people and what's your life and children, and oh my gosh, because everybody hated Trump because he'd been married 3 times and everything. Well, she's not perfect either, and Jill Biden was married to somebody else too, and then locked on to the lovely lawyer.
Yep.
So.
Well, you see the thing, Judge, look at Alabama, good example there, and Katie Britt, was a couple of weeks ago doing the Republican response to the State of the Union.
Yeah.
Now, prior to her, Judge Roy Moore, you may remember him running for Senate in Alabama. And what was the thing, with him, it was like all these women came out and were accusing him of all kinds of sexual escapades and that kind of stuff. And as soon as he lost the election, it all goes away. I mean, it's a standard Democrat pattern.
Well, I'm tired of these lies, and I know when I ran for my little campaign, like 2 days before, there was 2 little things on Facebook that looked like a 13-year-old made up. And that's when I thought I'd won it, because I was like, oh my gosh, what is this garbage? And it was so bad, but because they're hoping the headline sticks, the picture sticks, the fake accusation sticks. I mean, that's the whole thing I feel too with Trump. It's about the headline. Letitia just wants to seize Trump Tower on Monday, and rip off the Trump sign and throw 1,000 illegals into the building. Can you even imagine? Because every time I go to New York, every single time. Last time my husband was like, hey, it's Trump Tower. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I stop and I take a picture because it's so beautiful. But, you're coming and going. That's how you
name it.
Letitia Tower. LJ Tower.
She'd probably like that.
It starts with a B.
Yeah, the bitch tower.
Okay, you said it. I didn't.
I think didn't Trump say that this week there? That I'm not gonna
maybe
let that
he
bitch
did actually
take my tower or something.
Yeah. Well, and why does she get to decide what assets? Like, I'd be giving away some golf courses first, So please, I'm praying that I saw there was a GoFundMe, and there's supposed to be a fundraiser April 8th. And the one fundraiser I saw going around, it had a couple million to it, but to get to 500 million, oh my gosh! I hope that True Social money can be, liquid for him.
Well, I guess we'll find out Monday or Tuesday, but supposedly he has to have the money by Monday, and the one theory I heard was that he is actually going to file in federal court under the 8th Amendment that this is an illegal seizure of his property, and that the fine is
it's
unconstitutional
ridiculous
because the fine.
Nobody's ever had a fine like that, and he's not a flight risk. He's got assets.
Well, not only is the fine is arbitrary and capricious, because the 8th Amendment says you basically can't fine somebody a ridiculous amount of money. Okay, so the thinking is Trump's trying to get this into federal court and get it out of the state court system. So they may make an 8th Amendment filing to put a suspension on the seizure and get a federal judge to.
I hope it happens on Monday.
Sign off on it.
You know,
so we'll see. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all the legal tactics.
Because she wants Trump Tower and she wants Mar-a-Lago. So she wants to fill Trump Tower with illegals, and then she wants to be sipping her little Mai Tai at Mar-a-Lago. No.
What the hell happened to due process under the law in this country? I mean,
the whole thing is disgusting. What she's done to the Sons with their $4 million each that they have to pay. Nobody can be a businessman in New York. Who'd want to be in New York? Who?
Well, it was so bad that the Trump lawyers went to the judge and said, because they suspended Trump from doing business in New York for some number of years. And they went back to the judge and says, we can't even talk to bankers about getting the bond money because they're not allowed to deal with Trump under your order. So he had to go and modify his order to allow Trump to negotiate with New York bankers.
And John,
in order to raise the money for the bond, And I'm like, this is insane.
Well, and it comes down to Americans aren't even awake and don't know all the details like you and I do.
Right.
So hopefully they're tuning into Veronica Live. We still need a $1 million sponsor to help grow us nationally. We've had the biggest show today, like every time we have a show. State Attorney Larry Basford was wonderful. Virginia Congressional candidate Cameron Hamiliton from the District 7 up there was fantastic. And, you and I talking politics, loved every moment of it. And next week, no show because it's Easter weekend, and I will have some company here. But, we'll maybe pick another day, you and I. We always have stuff to talk about, John. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, X. The podcast will blow out on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Podcast Addict, YouTube. I put stuff on LinkedIn all the time. So anyways, we're everywhere, and what a great show. And I've got guests lined up like cordwood, so let me tease some of them. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about some of these guests. Our next big show, we're going to have Representative Dr. Rudman. He's over from the Gates District, and he reached out to me and he wants to come on, so that's going to be great. I've got Zach Sanchez. You see him all over our town. He owns the Think Real Estate. He's a broker, and it's a boutique real estate that's on fire here. And I wanted to talk to him because all those changes that have come down with the real estate laws, and plus talk about, he's like 30 and he's a successful businessman. He's just bought the C&G Good sporting store. Everything he touches turns to gold. So we'll talk to him. And then I booked also the new CEO of the chamber. He's going to come on too. So plenty. And then, I'm always working guests that I'm trying to get on. And so I'm excited about all these guests already.
Well, we got a really good show, and I was really impressed with Cameron Hamilton. I mean, that guy's the real deal.
Him.
He is the real deal,
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
We need more people like him to save this country.
Yeah. Well, God bless Sean. The sun has come out now in Florida, so I hope you have a great day, and God bless our audience, and happy Easter if we don't do a show before then. God bless everyone.
Happy Easter, everybody. Bye.